England secure their first World Cup victory with a 6-2 win against Iran.
Good morning, it's 6 o'clock on Tuesday the 22nd of November. This is Breakfast on GB News with Isabel, Webster and Martin Daubney. Here's what's leading the news this morning.
The Three Lions have secured their best ever World Cup start with a decisive victory against Iran. The win followed a controversial move by FIFA to stop captain Harry Kane from wearing the One Love armband.
Meanwhile, Wales managed their magnificent late comeback to draw with the USA last night. Gareth Bale's late heroics saw him score Wales's first World Cup goal since 1958. Well done, Wales.
In other news, the Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer will warn business leaders later today that the UK's immigration dependency must end. It comes as the CBI urges Rishi Sunak to harness migrant labour to promote growth.
And Dominic Raab will face a grilling from MPs today over accusations of bullying when he appears in front of the Justice Select Committee. It follows new reports that civil servants were forced to apologise on behalf of Raab for his inappropriate behaviour.
Do this.
You want to do this?
Yeah.
All right, I'll do that for you, all right? I promise.
And we'll be speaking to that 11-year-old Finlay Fisher who inspired Jack Grealish's armworm celebration yesterday after he scored England's 6th goal in the 89th minute against Iran.
That is so good. I just
Legendary.
absolutely love it.
Yeah, I love that
Anyway,
story.
get in touch the usual way via Twitter or email.
So our top story this morning, and England's World Cup campaign got off to the perfect start after their 6-2 victory against Iran.
Yeah, the Three Lions had 5 different goal scorers in the match, including Bukayo Saka, Marcus Rashford, who redeemed their penalty shootout misses from last year's Euros finals. Well done, lads.
Yeah, and the victory came just hours after a controversial move by FIFA to stop players from wearing the rainbow One Love armband that, as we know, promotes LGBTQ+ rights.
Wales, meanwhile, ended their 64-year wait for a World Cup goal after Gareth Bale scored a magnificent late penalty to secure a 1-1 draw with the USA. Well done, lads.
Well, let's head over to Qatar, where our reporter Paul Hawkins is waiting for us this morning. Good to see you, Paul. What a cracking start to the tournament for both of our sides, it has to be said. And really quite exciting now, especially for this England team. You get a sense that maybe they could go all the way.
Oh, God.
Started.
No, that's a bit
Okay.
stretch, if I'm honest. Yeah, morning, Isabel. Morning, Martin. I mean, let's be honest. You know, Iran didn't really put up much of an opposition. Clearly they had other things on their mind, and they didn't really test England. But England did very well. They dealt with the opposition 6-2, and then Wales quite nervy against the USA, who did look very impressive. They've got a young side, and it looked like it, very pacey, keeping possession, and their goal was really good as well. And it was only because Gareth Bale bailed them out, no pun intended. But let's get some more reaction to how England performed last night with England fan Salim, who joins us now. Salim, what did you make of last night's performance?
Actually, I disagree with you. I thought England did amazingly well.
And are they going to go all the way? That's what our presenter was saying.
No doubt. I mean, the only team that I'm worried about is Brazil, obviously, and maybe Argentina. Yeah. But otherwise, if they are lucky throughout the games and knockoff, we may get there. Yeah. We may get there, yeah.
Yeah, OK. And in terms of the performance last night, which players stood out for you?
Bellingham, obviously, he came out of nowhere. I mean, Dortmund, I didn't know he was that good a player, but yesterday he had a lot of control, he was calm, as if he was playing the World Cup tournaments forever, you know, so you could see it. And obviously, Saka was there, and Sterling did very well. Even though I think Rashford, sometimes he can be a little bit, you know, but he came in and he scored the goal. So the entire team played very, very well, and I was very, very happy. And again, I think England was too strong to Iran. It's not that Iran played bad. Iran played as Iran. They managed to score 2 goals, but England was so good that they overpowered them. Is what we expect for a team that they are willing to take the cup.
Yeah, and Salim, you're from Oman. Why do you support England?
Very good question. Number one, I believe this beautiful game, it wouldn't have come to life if it was not for England. Yeah. Okay, because it was born there. And they have the best Premier League, yeah, and they deserve it, you know. I mean, I believe it's because of them is why we are enjoying what's happening here today, you know. So I have a very soft
A
spot.
lot of love for England.
Big time, and it's time. It's time.
And you're going to the USA game. How excited are you about that?
100%. And I made a promise myself, as England proceed and qualify, I'll just go until the final.
Yeah.
To the final, yeah.
Okay, so we're going all the way.
All the way.
It's coming home.
It's coming home, and this time it's coming home, big time.
Salim, really good to talk to you.
Yeah, thank you very
mate.
much.
Cheers.
Appreciate it, yeah.
Thank you. There you go. So that's Salim, who's going to be at the England-USA game. He wasn't at the England-Iran game last night, but these people were, and we spoke to them just after the game.
Yeah, it was amazing, to be honest. Obviously, 8 goals in total, 6 by England, and some of the goals were amazing. Saka's goal.
Somebody came to us
before
and
the game,
asked
someone asked about it.
if we noticed that Iran didn't sing their anthem.
Yeah, they did.
Because they were split in half, he had explained to us. Because people were speaking fast around us, and I said to him, what are they talking about? And he goes, they're all pretty upset because Iran split between whether they can, and they just wanted to sing the anthem.
No worries.
There were problems for some fans, or reports of some fans having problems with their ticketing app getting in the game. Was that you guys?
Yeah, actually,
It was you?
Originally we had a problem, and literally at the last minute, the ticket downloaded. But they were quite non-negotiable about the tickets.
I think the advice is get there extra early. So we got there like 2 hours
Because
before.
the apps don't work very well.
Okay, very well. So you've got to allow for that extra time.
Correct.
Yeah, so I think the trick is, look, give yourself plenty of time if you're here in Qatar to get to the ground before that game against the USA. At Wales last night also, as we said, very nervy performance. They certainly didn't deserve to win, and they got away with the draw. The USA, much the better side. They're going to be much more of a test for England, but expect Wales to raise their game, of course, for that final group game against England next week. So, yeah, that's the latest from here. Today, there are 4 games, by the way, 4 games today. Argentina against Saudi Arabia, so you'll probably see throughout the day lots of Argentina shirts and Saudi fans in full voice. Then it's Mexico, Poland, Denmark, Tunisia, and then France against Australia is the final game. So lots of football. In fact, we're going to have 4 games a day for the next 7 days, so I know you'll be excited, Isabel.
Oh, I'm getting into it, actually. I am genuinely getting into it. Thank you so much for all of those assessments. I just wanted to ask, sorry, really quickly, before we let you go, the whole Harry Kane upset yesterday and the decision by FIFA and him not being allowed to wear that armband, I actually think it's really unfair on the players to have had that kind of stress before a big game like that. Do you think that actually, you know, you laughed and scoffed when I said they could go all the way now, but my goodness me, imagine how brilliant England could have been if they hadn't have had all that stress beforehand. I'm no football expert, but I just wondered if it had an impact.
No, true. Of course it has an impact. It's something else to think about. It's more stress for the players, and that's not good when you want to be, as you say, in the zone. But look, what do I know about football? Look, you think that it's coming home. Salim thinks it's coming home. So who am I to argue?
There you go. So you're the odd one out. Thank you so much, Paul. Appreciate it. Is it going to come home, do you reckon?
Well, I'm grizzled. I've been hurt before.
Right.
I've seen England throw it away, so I'm cautiously pessimistic.
OK.
It's a good place to be as an England fan. You can't get too excited. I am glad, however, I think like most fans, this armband stuff has gone.
Yeah.
Let's just get all this politics to one side now, get on with the tournament.
But talking about politics, I do really believe that those Iranian players yesterday not singing the anthem were
brilliant.
Genuine heroes. I think that was incredibly brave. You were pointing out to me before that actually many of the players don't live in Iran, but of course their family members do.
They do.
And there's a genuine question of whether or not that will put their family in harm's way, which is a sad state of affairs.
It's a serious business,
it's very serious.
because the regime, don't want the team to be doing that, and it is a dangerous thing to put your head above the parapet. So well done, Iran.
Incredibly brave.
Yeah.
Let us know your thoughts on all of that. Now we're going to talk about England and Wales fans having decided against heading to Qatar for the World Cup, but there were still plenty of people swapping their schedules in favour of the footy on home turf.
Yeah, and at one sports school in Nottingham, my home city, it wasn't too tricky convincing the lads on a training scholarship to stop studying and switch on the tally box instead. Our East Midlands reporter, Will Hollis, joined them for England's opening game against Iran yesterday.
At Passmove Grin in Basford, Nottingham, this training scholarship is putting football at the heart of the classroom. The Academy's sport course trains body and mind while connecting players to professional clubs. But today's session is cutting short. After all, it is the World Cup, England versus Iran.
Yeah, I feel like there's going to be some good football played. I feel like these could have been some better picks by Southgate, but I feel like it's a strong squad.
I think it's very good. You can see a lot of talent from different countries trying to do good for their countries, just win something.
It feels great being part of a team and coming here to watch football, to watch the World Cup together. It's lovely, lovely atmosphere around here. Yeah, better than watching it alone at home.
Wes is the academy director at Pass Move Grin.
We've just seen England's first goal of the World Cup, scored by Jude Bellingham. Great goal, good run into the box from midfield. Player of dual heritage and plays in Germany, so again, all them cultures coming together for the World Cup, which is amazing. We've opened the Sports Centre at Pass Move Grin today. The boys have been getting a day off from their scholarship programme just to watch the game. I think that's important, that the boys understand that togetherness and the culture of the World Cup.
With players from around the world in the team here, watching the tournament as a group highlights how football connects Britain's communities. Academy manager Sarjo is from Gambia, but served in the British Army. He says sport is service too.
For myself, it means a lot, to be honest, because I served in the British Army with the Grenadier Guards and serving for the country and supporting England. And it's the same because they're serving for the country by playing in the World Cup. And for me, it's a great passion for me to support England.
England has been training hard for the Cup, and it's paying off. Fans across the country were treated to a 6-2 thrashing of the Gulf state. The final whistle in Qatar means this game in Basford is back on. After all, watching on television is never as good as the real thing. Will Hollis for GB News in Nottingham.
Just a little reminder, in half an hour's time, we will be speaking to the boy, Finley, who inspired Jack Grealish's worm yesterday.
So good.
Yeah, so don't go anywhere. You need to stay tuned for that.
OK, let's bring you up to date with all of the rest of today's top stories.
The energy regulator, Ofgem's, told 17 suppliers to improve their approach to their vulnerable customers. Ofgem's report shows severe weaknesses at 5 firms, including Good Energy, Outfox and So Energy.
And cutting-edge research could double the survival rates of people with advanced cancer within a decade. World-leading experts say this will mean more people will get cured or live longer with the condition. Scientists believe they can make great strides in destroying the cells and boosting the body's ability to fight the condition.
Hundreds of schools in England have been downgraded by Ofsted. The schools watchdog inspected more than 370 schools in the last academic year, with only 17% of them retaining their outstanding grade. Most of the schools were being inspected for the first time in over a decade due to an exemption from regular checks. Just on that school inspection story, I actually think that's a really big deal.
Yeah.
Our own primary school, where my kids go, the head teacher had a spot check from Ofsted. It's an outstanding school, and first time in years, as I understand it, had their big inspection. And I said to the headmistress, "You're going to fly through. It's a brilliant school. Don't worry." She goes, "Just to let you know, the last 100 schools that this team has inspected have downgraded every single school."
Why are they doing that? They're just getting hard-lined against...
No, because the standards have slipped, because they haven't been... Because if you got an outstanding status, you then were exempt for sometimes up to as much as 10 years
so they
from being inspected. So, yeah, they just weren't keeping up with the standards. So I'm sure that's not the case in our school, fingers crossed. But really nerve-wracking for those teachers. Huge amount of pressure, as we know, with everything that's been going on in schools as well. And, let us know if you have similar stories to that. I'd love to hear your version of that.
OK, well, the Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, will today use a speech to say that the UK must wean itself off migrant labour. It's an incredible thing for him to say.
Fascinating. Yeah, well, speaking at the Confederation of British Industry, the CBI, he will say the days of low pay and cheap labour are over, and the focus should now instead be on training workers who are already in the country.
Well, it follows comments from the head of the CBI, Tony Danker, urging the Prime Minister to harness migration to promote economic growth.
Well, joining us now is a former aide to the Chief Secretary to the Treasury, Leon Emirali. Good morning to you. Let's start, shall we, with what seems to be an extraordinary hardening of his position from the Labour leader, almost more sort of Brexit position than the Conservatives at this point. And I suppose this is because he has every intention of trying to become Prime Minister at the next election. But you could have copy and pasted parts of what we're expecting him to say from a Boris Johnson speech, couldn't you?
Very much so. I think it's quite a shrewd game of politics here from Keir Starmer. I mean, he's spotted this opportunity that Rishi Sunak is not necessarily being painted as this true Brexiteer, even though he'll argue otherwise. And he thinks he can take that sort of battleground and soak up that Brexit vote. So I think it's very shrewd from Keir Starmer, but there's still question marks. Why are you saying it now? Where was this talk, 2-3 years ago? Why is it coming now? And it might be the public see through that and don't necessarily trust him on the issue.
Well, I'm not so sure. I mean, look, it's the front page of the Daily Telegraph. This is the Tory crib sheet, the Tory graph as it's called. And Starmer is suddenly, the kind of voice of Brexit land. I think it's an astonishing turnaround, and I also think it shows you all of the infighting with the Conservatives creates this vacuum for Labour to move into. So the Tories have got to sort themselves out, haven't they, Leon?
They do. And, the Conservative Party have got a long track record of beating themselves up and dividing themselves over the issue of Europe. And, we thought that was put to bed when we left the European Union. But clearly those debates are still rumbling on. And I think that if the Conservatives don't consolidate around a position, then there could be a gap for Labour to slot into. And we know that Brexit's still going to be an important battleground in the next general election.
Yeah, and these divisions, they aren't just exclusive to the backbenchers, the ERG versus, sort of more centrist One Nation Conservatives. It's right there in the Cabinet. I mean, we had Robert Jenrick on this programme yesterday saying he pretty much in alignment with what Sir Keir Starmer's saying, trying to get people who are on work benefits back into the workforce, appearing to contradict the Prime Minister, who spoke at the CBI later, saying, actually, we do need to try and encourage more migrants into the country, but with a visa-style scheme. Fascinating to see this right at the top of the Cabinet.
Yeah, and I think that, message discipline is one of those things that advisers push on. We need to have the same message coming from different ministers. And if you haven't got that, you've got a government that doesn't look united and doesn't look like it's got a plan. And I think this sort of flip-flopping on the idea of Brexit isn't going to play down well in those communities that voted for it. And I think that Labour have spotted that and sensed a bit of danger.
Now, call me a grizzled cynic, but this feels like focus group politics. How genuine is this from Starmer? And how much is it instead a kind of Blairism, let's say what we need to say to get elected? And how would it land with the hardcore refugee welcome types within the Labour Party, do you think?
I think you're justified to be a grizzled cynic there, Martin, because it does look like that, doesn't it? I'm not sure this is a comfortable position for Keir Starmer. I mean, he hasn't been a sort of consistent true Brexiteer at all. So
he
to suddenly
led the
come
People's
with
Vote
this
campaign to cancel Brexit.
Indeed, and I think that's how he's being painted. And there is a bit of opportunism here, I think, and he's spotted an opportunity and gone for it. But it doesn't sound sincere. It doesn't sound genuine. And if he can't get voters to believe him, to truly believe him, then it could backfire spectacularly.
Look, yesterday we heard quite robustly from the Prime Minister trying to distance himself from these claims of a Swiss-style deal with the EU, and it seems like the Prime Minister's having to put out fires left, right and centre. That was sort of promoted, wasn't it, by the Chancellor in some of the interviews and the comments he made last week. Now we're having more problems being exposed with his Deputy Prime Minister, Dominic Raab. Now the third allegation against him. This is being reported at the front of The Guardian today. Pippa Crerar, who arguably brought down the Prime Minister with her revelations into Partygate. Yep. So this is very, very embarrassing for the Prime Minister and, of course, difficult questions for Dominic Raab as he appears before the Justice Committee later today.
It is, and, it's a difficult one to prove. What's bullying and what's just being a hard taskmaster?
Throwing bits of tomato.
Well, if those stories are to be believed, then I think there's a lot of questions that need to be asked and action should be taken. But how do you prove that? It's just, I said, he said, and you go back and forth on it. So it is damaging, but if you've got this low-level rumbling of this going on in the background, it detracts from what you want to be doing, as a government implementing your plan for the country. So eventually, if this keeps going on, Rishi Sunak's going to have to put an end to it one way or another, and that looks tricky.
The fascinating thing is that nobody's talking about what Sunak is saying today. They're talking about Starmer. Starmer, I think, has stolen a march here. It's canny politics.
It is. And, Rishi Sunak, one of the criticisms of him is that he's not got that sort of political antennae to lead the Conservative Party into the next election. And I think that's evident. He's the Prime Minister. He should be on the front page of the Telegraph the day after a big speech, not the leader of the opposition.
Leon, I want to ask you, in your capacity as a former aide to the Chief Secretary to the Treasury, what's your gut reaction when you see the front of the Daily Mail, again, a Conservative newspaper, talking about parties for MPs paid for by the taxpayer as we see taxes at the highest level since the Second World War, and this cost of living crisis. I mean, it's going to go down really badly.
It leaves a sour taste in the mouth, doesn't it, Isabel? I think, you know, when we think about what a lot of families in this country are going through, looking at Christmas with a sense of dread because of how much it's going to cost, and here we are bailing out MPs on the taxpayer pound to enjoy parties and decorations.
Just explain how this... I know that this has all come from specifically the Independent Parliamentary Standards Authority, but presumably the Chancellor or the Prime Minister can say, no, this is not on at this point.
Well, the rules will be implemented, and it's up to the MPs as to whether or not they want to submit those expenses for parties. And it's the same with the way MPs get paid. That body, you know, says you get paid this much, and MPs sort of have to do it. So it is a strange situation.
There's one thing that's a saving grace. They won't be expensing for the booze, but they can for the cake. You know, cakeism. This is cakeism. They want to
let them eat cake.
Yeah.
Let the MPs eat cake.
And we're paying.
Exactly. It's not a laughing matter, really. Leon Emirali, fascinating to talk to you. So much politics around this morning. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Right, stay with us after the break. We'll be finding out how you can avoid scams and stay cyber secure this Black Friday, because those fraudsters are out in force at the moment. They are. But first of all, here's your Tuesday forecast.
Hello, I'm Aidan McGivern.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you know, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Friday and Sunday night from 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
We're on the same page again. There's something good happening.
Let Ian finish. Don't be such a cranky.
That mini budget was the tip of the iceberg.
And on Saturday, my show just got bigger. From 8, it's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In.
You can't govern a country if you can't speak. Stop talking.
My God, we reached the end. I've never been early in my life. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello there, it's Eamonn Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
And it's about standards and public life. No, I'll tell you what's hypocrisy, Narendra.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin.
We believe in the UK.
No bias, no censorship.
It just doesn't make sense to me. He wasn't doing his job as Chancellor.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton Tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News.
Welcome back at 6:23. Still to come on the programme this morning.
Thank you, Jack. Come on, England!
Inspired Jack Grealish's new goal celebration. He debuted at the World Cup after scoring a late goal in the 89th minute yesterday.
Oh, bless him. And as the cost of living crisis drives up rent, many are turning to house sitting to keep a roof over their heads. Find out what that's all about at 7:20. We'll be speaking to two people who've lived in 7 different homes in 5 months. I find this really fascinating.
It's actually a really, really interesting story. I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah.
OK, you can get in touch in all the usual ways. Email gbviews@gbnews.uk, or you can tweet us at gbnews.
Now, we were talking yesterday about how Black Friday is more sort of Black Week or indeed Black Month, because there's so many deals swirling around at the moment. And look, many shoppers are looking at their email inboxes, looking on social media, because they're being bombarded with deals at the moment. But of course, that means Lots of fraudsters are on the march.
That's right, because with increased online sales and spam emails comes increased online fraud.
So we're asking this morning what you can do to ensure that you and your loved ones shop safely. So let's speak to cybersecurity expert Derek Mitchelson, who joins us in the studio this morning. Look, this is alarming. You know, lots of people get overwhelmed by these kinds of emails anyway, but if people are taking advantage of that kind of snowball of emails at the moment, we need to be hyper alert, hyper vigilant at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. There's scammers come from all over the world, obviously. The internet doesn't have borders, so we see a huge increase in the amount of phishing and spam email that comes from the Black Friday period right up to Christmas. It's about 20% of emails that come in as much as that are actually scam emails.
And what kind of tactics typically do people need to look out for? What's being used to fish for your details and fraud?
So social media is used to do a lot of the phishing. But most of these emails that come out are just general emails with the too good to be true deal. So it's electrics, it's designer goods, and of course everybody's trying to get a bargain, particularly this time of year. So it's so easy to do a single click. You're through to a website that looks like it's the proper website because it's got all the same graphics, a similar name to what you expect, a similar experience to go through and actually make your purchase. But you just then realise there's an issue and it doesn't turn up.
And you use the phrase there, too good to be true. And I suppose the advice really there is if it looks too good to be true, probably is.
Well, of course. I mean, what I do, because like everyone, I get a lot of these emails that are coming through myself. And sometimes there are good bargains to be had. But what I would always suggest people do is they go to the original website and they actually purchase on there. If the deal comes through in an email, it should also be available if you do the Google search or the Bing search and you go directly to the retailer.
And because we're in a cost of living crisis, people are looking to gadgets to save money, things like air heaters and air fryers. Is there a specific targeted fraud campaign this time around the cost of living crisis?
Yes, absolutely there is. Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, it's every time this year, as I say, we see it's very much a pivot between the amount of the spam that comes out from the threat actors, the attacking groups, and then the authorities, etc., National Crime Centre here, Action Fraud as well, they're trying to actually balance that and try to give it advice as to how to stay safe. And it becomes more difficult every year.
Absolutely. And I suppose what's not very encouraging is the fact that even by clicking on some of these emails, you can find yourself in a bit of bother. So best advice is actually not even to open. I mean, if you click on it and open some of these emails, what happens?
Yes, I mean, so a lot of these emails will have attachments in them. The attachments themselves are dangerous, so these attachments will actually install viruses, malware on PCs. But the ones we see at the moment tend to be the single clicks that go through to that retail shop or the retail experience. Or if you're on social media, you actually find a posting that's getting done. It's the same as actually if you're walking, I think, in retail, walking through shops. You wouldn't walk in a shop if the shop doesn't actually look. It's not something you know. If the shop itself doesn't look legitimate, you wouldn't go in the shop and transact. On the internet, it's exactly the same. I would recommend you stay with what you know.
Yeah.
You go direct to these brands that you actually know. And there's some great bargains to be had at this time of year. You know, you certainly don't want to be losing money. Cybercrime at the moment, coming up between Black Friday and Christmas, people are losing an average on scams of about £1,000 per scam at the moment.
Gosh.
So the advice is ignore the emails and stick with the trusted suppliers.
Some of the emails that come through, if they point you in good bargains, go to the website directly. The bargain will absolutely be there. Don't go in for this single click all the way through because you may well live to regret that bargain.
OK, Derek Mitchelson, cybersecurity expert. Really good advice from you this morning. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Now, I just wanted to say a few words about Eamonn this morning, because I think
Yes.
probably a lot of our viewers and listeners wondering where he is, and it means that I get to sit with you, which is lovely. But lots of you will know Eamonn had an operation on his back shortly after Her Majesty's funeral. And then after that, he had a fall, which meant he had to have another operation. And then tragically, on Friday last week, he lost his mother. And I just wanted to send my love to him, really, this morning. There she is, Josie Holmes, mother of 5 Holmes boys, would you believe? Eamonn's the second of 5 boys, and it is her funeral today at 11:30. And it's incredibly hard for Eamonn, I think, at this stage. He's going through a really down part. I think he really wants to be here, he really wants to be there, and I just wanted to, say my heart goes out to him. And of course, our condolences to all of the Holmeses today, because look at her, gorgeous Josie.
and he's spoken so fondly of her over all the years, during his broadcasting. And thank you, Eamonn. You even took time to send me a good luck message for sending in for him. That's the man all over.
Yeah.
Always the giver and always humble. So Eamonn, sending love, and I'm sure all the GB News viewers are too. Good luck, mate.
Absolutely. So we send our love to you, Eamonn, and indeed to all of your children, Niall, Declan, Rebecca, and Jack. We'll be thinking of you today.
OK, well, after the break, we'll be going through the papers with Michael Heaver and Stephanie Tecci.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Deebs & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Monday to Thursday, 10 till 12, on TV, on radio and online.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Good morning and welcome back to GB News. You're watching and listening to us with Isabel, that's me, Martin Dalby. Let's have a look at the front pages.
The Sun says, hooray Jude, as England's wonder kid. Jude Bellingham gets England off to their best ever World Cup start. What a star he is.
Magnificent stuff. And the Miracles, England's victory, pride and prejudice as the Three Lions light up Qatar following the controversy surrounding Harry Kane's one love armband.
Here's The Guardian. It mentions the Iran squad, saying this was more than a match as the players refused to sing the national anthem. Let us know your thoughts about that. Incredibly brave, I think.
It was, yeah. And The Times also leads with England's pride. They cover the story about tailor-made treatments to improve cancer care as well.
And here's the Mail. It's all about the England goals, as well as those revelations that we've been talking about just now about taxpayers paying for MPs' Christmas parties. All right, it's that time in the programme. We get to go inside the papers for you. Joining us this morning to do that with us is the former Brexit Party MEP turned founder and editor of Heaver News, that is Michael Heaver, and the showbiz journalist Stephanie Tecci. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Michael, let's start with you. You've chosen the front of the Sun this morning, and it is hooray Jude. Jude Bellingham, officially a household name now.
Absolutely, and it's amazing to think, isn't it? Jude Bellingham, 19 years of age, an absolute sensation. I must say, I always think England are going to win every tournament. I'm one of those. But I don't have that sort of self-doubt. I actually think we've got an amazing, fantastic team. We saw that play out yesterday. Certainly from a selfish perspective now, though, I'd quite like my team, Chelsea, to go and sign this young man. I think he's going to be the star of the tournament.
I was reading that he's worth 100 million.
Yeah.
He's going to be worth a lot more in future. Well, that is the one thing, isn't it? You have to be incredibly driven as a young man, already earning those amounts of money, to actually push yourself further. Yeah. And I think, you know, what you've seen from this young man already is absolutely spectacular. He's made the country proud already.
Well, I've got to say, as a grizzled cynic, I was a bit annoyed that Iran scored 2 goals. I was.
Yeah, we're better going forward than we are defending this team.
I'm just enjoying you calling yourself a grizzled cynic all morning. That's at least twice, and I didn't have to say anything.
It's going to keep going. And actually, Steph, let's move this on, because the Mirror, being the Mirror, they want to focus on the armband and the politics. I don't know about you, but I'm glad the politics are taking a backseat and it's about the action. What about
Martin,
you?
I think politics and sports go hand in hand, like different sectors of industries. And, you know, we knew this was coming. We knew that the LGBTQ rights was not going to be something that was going to be swept underneath the carpet. And I think it's a very cowardly move from FIFA about this, because, you know, I totally agree we should respect Qatar's policies on homosexuality being illegal, but just to wear a small armband to just show support, to say, actually, you know what, we do support LGBTQ...
But isn't the story here, actually, for all of the posturing of Gareth Woke-gate, for all of Harry Kane's posturing, they caved in.
Yeah.
FIFA gave them their armband. They wore it like good little boys. It was just all virtues.
Come on.
No. It was all virtue signalling.
I think that's a bit harsh to call them, you know, good little boys or whatever. I mean, they've got the pressure. They've got the pressure of the nation on their shoulders, and they were being threatened with being sanctioned and excluded from future games, and yellow carded, which was an awful expectation, burden to put on them when they were just trying to do what they believed to be the right thing.
Definitely.
I think it's unfair actually to put the pressure on the players. These are not diplomats, right? These boys are there to go and win football games and win the tournament. And actually, I think it's highly disruptive to have this constant talk we see now surrounding football about politics. They're there to win football games.
But it was Harry Kane that wanted to wear it. We weren't telling him he had to wear it. So this is coming from the players
But they chose to be political when they started taking the knee, when they started getting involved in all that. So they opened the Pandora's box.
But now they've got a problem with them taking the knee. So what is the big problem with them wearing an armband?
Well, I think we know the answer to that.
Let's stick and talk about the football rather than what's gone on the pitch rather than off the pitch.
Yeah, but by doing that, you're alienating a section of fans who, if they were to travel to Qatar, could potentially be imprisoned or killed.
And there were fans yesterday that were prohibited from getting into games with pride hats and pride T-shirts, so they are being stopped for displaying those colours.
But if people wanted to make a stand, they shouldn't have gone to the tournament in the first place, and England shouldn't be there. The fact is, we're there. Now the boys need to focus on winning the games, winning the tournament.
And they will do that, and I don't think there's any question about that. But I do think it's interesting how there's almost a little bit of a sort of backlash against the One Love armbands, and yet everybody's applauding the Iranians for being brave. So it's OK for the Iranians to be political, but not for us.
But there's a big difference, and one is an empty virtue signal by a multi-millionaire. The other is a life-risking stance taken for thousands of political prisoners right now in Iran who actually do deserve support. So maybe actually I'm being a complete hypocrite. We do need a bit of politics.
That was the point, Martin. But thank you.
Well, let's get back on safer ground, Michael. Let's get back onto Brexit.
Yeah, well, no, in all seriousness, this is a really interesting story that you've chosen here on the front of the Telegraph, and we were just touching on it with Leon a little bit earlier. But oh my goodness me, Sir Keir Starmer is taking a harder line on migrant workers than the Conservative Party.
Unbelievable.
Well, a Labour leader here speaking out against low pay and cheap labour, having campaigned for it, of course, campaigned for EU membership, campaigned for EU open borders. Of course, we've seen post-Brexit, actually, people need to remember, the Conservatives have actually continued with mass migration. I believe the last figures, the net level was 239,000. So this has continued. But there's no doubt at all here. This is Labour blatantly trying to win over Brexiteers and Leavers. I think people have long memories, actually, of what Keir Starmer was saying prior to 2016, after the referendum, trying to overturn the result, etc. But this is a serious threat for the Conservatives. The polling I've been looking at shows actually some Leavers are now switching to Labour, people that had gone and voted Tory for the first time at the 2019 general election. I must say, so much has happened since that 2019 general election when, of course, Boris Johnson's party got that big majority. I think the Tories are in trouble with Brexiteers. You've got some going back to Labour, you've got some going to reform UK. And I think the Tories have got a very short amount of time now to sort themselves out and actually deliver for Brexiteers if they're going to win their support.
Rishi Sunak will be very keen to try and get the discussion back onto the economy and being deemed as a safe pair of hands in the wake of everything last week. I mean, the latest polling by Ipsos yesterday still had Labour miles ahead of the Tories, but where there was some positive news for Rishi Sunak, 42% thought that he has what it takes to steady the ship, as opposed to 35% thinking Starmer has what it takes. But this will be a real threat and concern, don't you think, for the Conservatives?
Definitely. And I think it's time that Starmer actually became more bold and less wishy-washy, because at the moment, as we've seen with the Conservatives, there's been so much turmoil in that party. And, you know, I feel over the years, Starmer's had many times he could have stepped up and actually engaged with the public. So by him coming out with this, it's really his chance to actually put himself as a forefront leader for number 10. But the thing is, it's all good saying, you know, you're going to crack down on migration workers, but what happens to actually boosting up the morale of people actually wanting to work in those jobs that migrants are doing?
And Labour want to be the party of business, don't they? That's what they're trying to argue at the moment. And yet you've got the CBI boss yesterday saying, we have this Labour shortfall, we need migration. So actually Labour's going against the CBI on this.
Or what we could do is what we argue for all along, and that is pay British workers a higher wage to fulfil those jobs rather than importing labour.
Would that not be inflationary? Because there was a big argument about, you know, high wages. This is not the time or the moment when we've got a huge spiralling problem with inflation to be paying people high wages. But you could have cheap wages.
But hear me out, Isabel. You will never hear me say this very often. I agree with Keir Starmer today.
There we go. Wow.
Keir Starmer is actually talking common sense. But Michael, quickly, talking about a divided Tory party, this surely would divide the Labour Party.
Well, I actually think that many in the Labour Party now are pretty much willing to say whatever it takes, such as was the drubbing at the last election. They're going to keep Sturm. And at the end of the day, look, as with Rishi Sunak, it's all well and good for Keir Starmer to say this. Do voters seriously think that a Labour government would make significant cuts to levels of migration, for instance? I certainly don't. I think a lot of voters will be sceptical. But, look, this is a Labour Party that's moved some way, actually, if you remember, from the Jeremy Corbyn's leadership. Now, this is just words, and I think, as I said, a lot of people will look at Keir Starmer's track record on Brexit, on campaigning for Remain, on campaigning for a second referendum, and be highly sceptical. But this does show you this is a Labour Party trying to win over Brexiteers now.
But it's not that easy to just get British workers back into the workforce. I think there's about 6 million people on out-of-work benefits, a million of which the government are targeting to try and come back, many of whom are off because they're long-term sick, whether that's long-term COVID or waiting for operations. But we know there's this crisis in the NHS. People can't get to their operations and they're long-term waiting for those. The whole thing is linked, and it's incredibly difficult to get that million or so back into the workplace. And meanwhile, we've got stuff rotting in the fields because nobody's picking it.
But meanwhile, we can always find 15 billion quid to throw away at COP27. We can find millions for the Ukraine. I think many GB viewers will be saying, look, we should be spending money on helping Brits getting back into work to drive the economy from within. And Keir Starmer is completely dominating the conversation around this. It's astonishing.
It's an interesting turn of events. Steph, staying with politicians, this is absolutely mind-boggling front page for the Mail. I mean, it beggars belief when we are facing the biggest tax burden in 70 years. What's the latest twist in all of this?
I just feel like the Independent Parliamentary Standards Authority have not read the room at all. Like, come on, with Partygate, we saw how the public was outraged by having to follow all these COVID rules while our politicians got to party at our own expense. So now they're saying for the first time ever, Christmas parties is going to be at the taxpayers' expense. So that means they can claim for refreshments and decorations. But not booze. Alcohol. Alcohol's been left off.
Oh, how abstemious.
How nice of them. But the thing is, we have many families who are going to be facing a cash-strapped Christmas. And to know that they would be able to enjoy expenses at our expense, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, don't worry, they've been urged to try and get value for money.
Oh, yeah, thanks.
I don't think it's that
Michael, this is the sort of thing that drives the public bonkers, doesn't it, about how out of touch MPs are with the real man.
Yeah, and I think given the, as you point out, the economic circumstances many are facing now, surging bills, inflationary pressures, you know, people finding when they take their money to local supermarket isn't stretching anywhere near as far, and I'm certainly noticing that when you go to the till at the end, you're thinking, what on earth is going on in here? I only came to spend 20, I ended up spending 40. So I certainly think, you know, stuff like this is going to come under more and more scrutiny, and there's, I certainly wish we had a government that was actually cutting taxes so people actually had a bit of relief on that side in terms of their pay packets. But of course, as we know, taxes over the next few years likely to go up.
Well, this ties in really nicely to the front of the Express, Steph, in the story about 1 in 3 over 50s not being able to pay their bills, which again, in modern Britain, is a shocking headline.
It seems like the goalpost is being moved for people towards their retirement age who just want to wind down, because now we have 1 million of over 50s who are being forced to work past retirement because they can't afford their bills, inflation, the cost of living crisis, and it's quite sad for them, because you think to yourself, you work all your life in this country, trying to think towards the end of it, I'll be able to relax. And that's not happening. The goalpost keeps on shifting for such people.
But there's another potential solution to this, something that's been talked about at the CBI conference, is getting older people back into work. So encouraging retirees with huge life experience and things like, teaching, nursing,
Yes, and
policing.
these part of the Great Resignation, the 600,000 or so who post the lockdowns decided, you know what, it's not worth my while going back to work. But there is, as you say, this talent pool which could be coaxed back in.
Some people do want to work past retirement, because some people, when they do retire, they're bored, they're twiddling their thumbs, and they would rather prefer to work.
Well, you have a massive mental decline, don't you, once you stop, once you retire. So it's a terrible thing to say, but I was reading the stats about it, and that's one of the reasons I think I always want to be working, because I just don't want my brain
just to
decline.
keep the brain ticking over.
Well, my dad's watching now. He's 84. He still works.
Really?
He still goes out doing gardening. He said to me, if I stop working, I'm just going to drop dead sort of thing.
That's the thing.
Just keep active, keep going.
There is still value for them in the market, but I think it's just people being forced to have to work because of the climate. That's a bit unfair.
Don't forget, though, we've got remote working as well now. So I think in the years to come, by the time I'm a pensioner, I could well see myself at a computer probably earning a living and not putting my back out necessarily, but probably working in sort of more comfortable surroundings, let's say.
OK, so we've got a couple of minutes left. Why don't we go back for a little nibble of some more Brexit, Michael?
I thought you'd never ask.
And let's give Sunak a chance. We've been coating the guy quite a lot this morning. So this is the front page.
It's the eye.
Yeah, the eye. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah,
how's about Sunak?
Yeah, this is the fallout from the story we saw from the Sunday Times about the government switching position, going for this sort of Swiss-style model in terms of the UK's relationship with the EU.
Which they've denied. Let's be clear.
Which they've denied. But to be fair, the Sunday Times have pushed back very strongly and said, look, we would not have ran this story unless, as they described it, I think it was impeccably sourced. And what I think you've got going on here is you've got Jeremy Hunt as Chancellor, Rishi Sunak as Prime Minister. Of course, voters haven't had a say on that. And I think what's happened here is someone at a senior level in government, let's say, has floated this idea to see what the scale of the backlash would be, what the reaction would be.
It's been
and you can see, and it's been absolutely huge. And I think the prospect, for instance, of Nigel Farage returning to frontline politics has certainly frightened quite a few at the top of the Tory party.
Well, he was rattling his sabre about that yesterday in the Express, and I think you're going to pick up on that on the next hour, Michael.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, this could be a big development in British politics. If the government start backtracking on Brexit, expect to see another huge voter backlash.
Yeah, but there has... I mean, look, the Sunday Times may well be able to say it's well-sourced, but absolutely, categorically, Downing Street have said this is not on the table, and, you can't get any more clear than that, can you?
Do we believe Downing Street? Do we believe them on parties?
Yes, because they know, and I genuinely believe this will never happen because they know how toxic it is. And at the end of the Conservative Party, they'd be absolute fools, even if they want to do that, even if they want to remove those barriers to trade, which is what Jeremy Hunt effectively was saying. He wanted to have a more frictionless movement of imports and exports with our closest neighbours. He just simply can't, because it is such a toxic topic.
But wouldn't the right thing to do here, with a new Chancellor, with a new Prime Minister, is to have an election where they put it in a manifesto, what they actually believe, what they actually think the future direction of the country should be in black and white, and then let voters have their say on it. That's what I think you're getting this confusion, is because these guys have come in and actually, in some ways, are moving away from the Boris Johnson 2019 manifesto, I think.
Superb. Michael, Steph, you both had your Weetabix today. Thank you very much. It's been an excellent paper review. See you next time.
Thank you.
Now, 6:47, let's bring you up to date with the latest headlines this hour. And Wales have ended their 64-year wait to score at the World Cup, drawing 1-1 with USA in their first match after Gareth Bale scored the equaliser from the penalty spot. Just a bit of excitement there. England, of course, also won their opening match against Iran. They won 6-2 with goals scored by Bellingham, Saka, Sterling, Rashford and, of course, Grealish.
Yeah, well done to all of them. And the Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, will warn business leaders that the days of low pay and cheap labour must end, as he sets out his plans to end what he calls Britain's immigration dependency. Addressing the Confederation of British Industry Conference, Sir Keir Starmer will outline proposals to invest in training up workers who are already here. Astonishing.
For the first time ever, MPs can expense the cost of food and drinks, non-alcoholic, I should point out, for Christmas staff parties to the taxpayers. Of course, it doesn't involve those alcoholic beverages, but it does include festive decorations for offices. This is according to the Daily Mail. MPs have been told their claims should represent value for money in the financial climate.
Well, England and Manchester City footballer Jack Grealish ended his goal drought during yesterday's magnificent 6-2 victory against Iran, and his celebration caught the eye of one very special supporter.
Yes, Grealish's worm celebration was dedicated to 11-year-old Finlay Fisher, who wrote to him to thank him for the footballer's work both on and off the field.
Yeah, young Finlay suffers from cerebral palsy, but that doesn't stop him competing in Manchester City's special disability sessions and celebrating his love of the beautiful game.
Let's get a little bit of a reminder of Jack Grealish's promise to his number one fan.
All right, do this.
You want to do this?
Yeah.
All right, I'll do that for you, all right?
All right.
I promise. But remember, I've got to score, though.
Next time
I score, yeah? All right, then. But I'll do that for you. So what is it, just like this, yeah?
Yeah.
All right, deal.
And I'm so thrilled to say we can actually speak to both Finlay and his dad, Daniel, now. Oh, my goodness me, Finlay, did you sleep a wink last night? You must be buzzing.
I couldn't believe it when I obviously saw Jack Grealish. It made my day. It made my whole year, actually.
I'm not surprised at all. And look, you obviously had the pleasure, as we saw in that clip, of meeting Jack and chatting about what he meant to you and how he was a fantastic role model, but also basically getting him to... Well, first of all, you wanted him to do the worm,
The full worm.
The full worm.
Yeah.
And then he did your version of it. Just talk us through what that conversation was like, to be up close with your hero.
I obviously wanted to have a conversation with Jack because he really inspires me, and because his sister also has cerebral palsy, and he knows what it's like. So I think I really get along with him because he helps me with things, and he gives me more confidence to play football.
Oh,
and it's a huge connection because his goal came really late in the day, didn't it? Are you surprised that you remembered?
Yeah, I thought that he'd forget, but then obviously when I did it, I was cheering. I was so excited, and I got it on record as well.
Daniel, please tell me, Dad, were there tears in your eyes when that happened?
It was unreal. Yeah, I mean the fact he remembered, it just meant so much to Finn, and I could just see he was so excited.
Yeah, I'm choking up. Think about it.
Yeah, I've got to say, it was a marvellous day yesterday, but seeing this has really put the cherry on the cake.
Oh, absolutely.
And to have him remember, I mean, he's got a lot on his mind, right? He's playing at the World Cup, he scored a goal late on, a huge victory, and still, Finn, he remembered your conversation. That must mean the world to you, and you must be a hero locally, mate.
Yeah, he's my best friend, and also Callum Melton for assisting Jack Grealish. He's also my other best friend.
Aww.
I think England are going to win the World Cup.
Yes, yeah. I agree. I really do see that now. Look, I'm no expert. I'm not your kind of expert, but I'm beginning to think that. Can you just tell us a little bit about the story about why you first decided to reach out to Jack? Because it just brings a whole new dimension to the superstar footballer, doesn't it?
So I first wanted to write a letter to him through the Premier League because they wanted to do a video of Jack Grealish, and I also wanted to write a letter to him because his sister also has cerebral palsy. So he inspires me, and he knows what it's like to live with someone with cerebral palsy. So he really gets it.
Aww.
And it's just a huge example of the humanitarian work that goes on behind the scenes at football, and the sort of stuff that players don't get a lot of credit for. I mean, they're getting stick about what they're doing on the pitch, but this sort of stuff, bonding with the community and showing some heart is massively important to the game, isn't it?
Yeah.
So they do a lot of the players do a lot of work that isn't necessarily reported, you know. So it's nice that this has been recognised. He's done something that a lot of people have seen. He stuck to his word, and it just shows the character of the man. To be fair.
See, look, we talk so much, don't we, about politics and football, but actually, as you say, this shines a light on the other dimension to these very, very wealthy individuals, the power they have to make real changes to people's lives. And I have to say, I didn't actually know about Jack's sister. Can you tell me a little bit about that story, if you know anything about that, Daniel? Because obviously it caught your attention because of your son's situation.
Yeah, again, so she's in a similar situation to Finlay. She was born and obviously she's been diagnosed with cerebral palsy. And people don't quite understand the struggles that people with cerebral palsy go through on a daily basis. You know, things are a lot harder. And it's just nice to make people aware of what these people have to go through on a daily basis.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I wondered, looking ahead to the USA match now, made a bit easier, of course, by Wales drawing with USA. The pressure's off England now. Hopefully they can start to settle in and really enjoy this tournament. Do you think, though, Finn, you think that your goal celebration might catch on? Do you think it won't just be Grillo doing it? Do you think the rest of the lads might start doing it?
Hopefully. I mean, hopefully. The whole England squad does it.
Yeah, because we have Usain Bolt with his one, and then we have Mo Farah with his, and now we can do the arm worm.
I think it should catch. I think the whole England team needs to go worm crazy.
Every time he scores, all through the World Cup. Yeah, especially in the final. How about that? We'll speak to you again, shall we? If we get all the way to the final and he does us an arm worm.
There you go.
In fact, why don't you come into the studio and come and meet us? And this is a challenge then. If we get to the final and there's an arm worm there, we'd love to have you in the studio with us, Finlay.
Let's do a group worm.
You're on.
You're on. Excellent. Good stuff. Really lovely to talk to you this morning. Thanks for getting up bright and early. I suppose you're off to school now after all this excitement. You're going to have a hero's welcome.
No, you do it.
OK.
You got us all worming, son. Well done, mate.
Fantastic. Thanks, Finlay. Hopefully see you after that final. All the best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Brilliant.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
God bless him.
Isn't that
nice
just
story.
the most amazing, heartwarming?
Yes.
I've got something in my eye, little moment.
Yes, I saw you second time this morning. I've nearly got you. I love it. Fantastic. Look, stay with us. We've got lots more, the highs and lows of football for you throughout the course of the morning. Of course, this is coming on from England's decisive 6-2 win yesterday against Iran. See you in a moment.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236 and YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Monday to Thursday, 10 till 12, on TV, on radio and online.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
I think I've seen probably quite enough of Matt Hancock to last me a lifetime.
I'll also be getting to know you better, travelling to find out what you think about the politicians who are fighting for your vote.
They've got to get this country back on track.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. only on GB News, on TV, radio and online.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
England secure their first World Cup victory with a 6-2 win against Iran.
Good morning, it's 7 o'clock on Tuesday the 22nd of November. This is Breakfast on GB News with Isabel, Webster and Martin Daubney. Here's what's leading the news today.
The Three Lions have secured their best ever World Cup start with a decisive victory against Iran. The win followed a controversial move by FIFA to stop Captain Harry Kane from wearing the One Love armband.
Superb display, but meanwhile Wales didn't let us down. They managed a late comeback to draw with the USA last night. Gareth Bale's magnificent late heroics saw him score a first World Cup for Wales goal since 1958.
In other news today, the Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer will warn business leaders that the UK's immigration dependency must end. It comes as the CBI urges the Prime Minister to harness migrant labour to promote growth.
And Dominic Raab will face a grilling from MPs today over accusations of bullying when he appears in front of the Justice Select Committee. It follows new reports that civil servants were forced to apologise on behalf of Raab for his inappropriate behaviour.
And we are the People's Channel. We love to get lots of your thoughts in via email on Twitter. And I must say, they've been coming in thick and fast far this morning, haven't they? What are people saying about the World Cup?
Well, as you'd imagine, huge enthusiasm, although it is early days. You know, England can always mess things up. But Graham says money talks in football, and if the England players really wanted to make a statement, they could always have boycotted the World Cup or donate money to charity.
Colin says, how can you keep politics out of football when Premier League players took the knee and FIFA is the most politically corrupt sporting organisation on the planet? Jan says we should try not to police the world. If you're gay, you wouldn't go on holiday to Qatar, so why try to go and watch football there?
That's right, and Roger says, let's remember, this is the World Cup and it's about football, not politics. Let's just enjoy the sport.
Let us know your thoughts. Get in touch the usual ways.
Well... Well, England's World Cup campaign got off to a perfect start after their 6-2 victory against Iran.
It did indeed. The Three Lions had 5 different goal scorers in the match, including Bukayo Saka, Marcus Rashford, who redeemed their penalty shootout misses from last year's Euros final.
Yes, and the victory came hours after a controversial decision by FIFA to stop players wearing the rainbow One Love armband that promotes LGBTQ rights.
And Wales, meanwhile, ended their 64-year wait for a World Cup goal after Gareth Bale scored a late penalty to secure a 1-1 draw with the United States.
So let's head over to Qatar now, where our reporter Paul Hawkins is waiting for us. Top of the morning, Paul. How's it over there?
Yeah, hi Martin. It's getting hotter here, as it always does every day. Pretty toasty, but not as hot as England's performance last night. Look, we're not saying they're going to win the World Cup, right? Let's just calm temperaments there. I can say that, having watched, or suffered rather, as many of us have of an age suffered watching England at various tournaments around the world. So look, it was a great performance, but Iran weren't much of a test, were they? So 6-2 it finished, and then Wales probably a little bit disappointed with the way they performed against the USA. The USA were decent last night, and they looked their age. They've got a very inexperienced but young side, and scored a good goal, and Gareth Bale had to, as we said before, bail them out. So look, decent performance. This is what the England fans told us after they'd been to the Iran game.
Yeah, it was amazing, to be honest. Obviously 8 goals in total, 6 by England, and some of the goals were amazing. Saka's goal.
Somebody came to us
before
and
the game,
asked
someone asked about it.
if we noticed that Iran didn't sing their anthem.
Yeah, they did.
Because they were split in half, he had explained to us. Because people were speaking Farsi around us, and I said to him, what are they talking about? And he goes, they're all pretty upset because Iran split between whether they can, and they just wanted to sing the anthem.
There were problems for some fans, or reports of some fans having problems with their ticketing app getting in the game. Was that you guys?
Yeah, actually.
It was you?
Originally we had a problem, and literally at the last minute, the ticket downloaded. But they were quite non-negotiable about the tickets.
I think the advice is get there extra early. So we got there like 2 hours
because
before.
the apps don't work very well.
Okay, very well. So you've got to allow for that extra time.
Correct.
There you go. So some of the England fans were heading towards the Albida fan park on the Corniche last night, where they do serve alcohol. So there might be a few sore heads this morning. But look, England on a high, probably some work for Wales to do. Next games for England and Wales are on Friday. Today, there are 4 matches. So the first one is Saudi Arabia against Argentina. Also today, France, I should say, taking on Australia. We can speak to some a couple of Socceroo fans now. Kat and Sarah, thanks for speaking to us, guys. First of all, how are you feeling about watching Australia at the World Cup?
Great. This is my 3rd World Cup, and I'm really excited to watch us play France again. Hopefully we'll get a win this time. You know, Benzema's out, Mbappe's out, no problem. We're fine.
Oh, and that's it. So a win for the Socceroos then.
Obviously, we're going for 3 points.
Yeah, this is your 3rd World Cup. Yeah, and is it how many
World Cup for me? So excited, yeah.
Yeah. And how does this World Cup compare to the others you've been to? Which ones did you go to?
I've been to Russia and Brazil. This one's different. So in Russia I had 5 matches. Brazil I had 3 matches. Here I've got 20. So I get to watch a lot more football in a shorter space of time, which is great for football fans.
Yeah, and it's not going to be like that at other World Cups, is it?
Have this again.
No, exactly. So who are the players to watch out for in terms of the Socceroos then? Because we know a little bit more about the Australian cricket team, some of us, but not so much the Socceroos.
Yeah. I think Harry Suter in defence. That's why Benzema's out. He was too scared that Harry was going to be there.
Yeah, we've got Aaron Moy run the midfield. Riley McGree will probably play today, who's playing for Middlesbrough. So I guess English fans will have seen him play. But yeah, he's quality in the middle of the park, so hopefully he gets a run today. And hopefully we score some goals, which is normally our Achilles heel, but today we're confident.
Yeah, and obviously there's a bit of a time difference, but how popular is soccer, as they call it, in Australia at the moment?
Football.
Yeah, we call it football.
Do you call it football? I thought because it was Socceroos, you call it. So it should be the Footballeroos then.
No, it should. Just doesn't have the same ring on the tongue.
Yeah.
There's a lot of live sites going on. This match is actually a good kick-off time at 6 a.m. So you get up pre-work, get ready to watch it.
West Coast 3 a.m. for us, so Perth people are going to struggle, but they'll be up and about to watch it.
They'll be up and about. We'll get behind it. We are a great sporting nation who really likes to get behind our national team for anything, especially when we get to take down the French.
Yeah.
And we're underdogs, always.
And you've got tickets to all the games, have you? Yeah, but this will be the toughest one, won't it? Score prediction?
1-0 us.
1-0.
We're going up.
Oh, sneaky. We're going to sneak a draw here today and set us up. So, but I'll go 1-0 sounds good to me too.
Yeah. Listen, thanks for speaking to us. Really appreciate it. Thanks, guys. There you go. So Australia taking on France. That's one of the games today. Also, Mexico taking on Poland, Denmark, Tunisia, and the first game of the day, which is at 10 a.m. your time, Argentina against Saudi Arabia. Remember, probably Lionel. In fact, we can almost say for certain it's going to be Lionel Messi's last World Cup.
Oh, gosh.
Now, quickly, Paul, I've got a question for you. You said a few England fans are nursing sore heads there. What, so they're actually like intrepid explorers managing to find some booze somewhere?
Well, yeah, there's the Albida fan park, and there's thousands and thousands and thousands of people who go there to watch the games on this absolutely enormous screen. And it's one of the venues where they serve alcohol. It's not cheap, but they do serve alcohol there. Remember, the fan zones, the hotel bars, you can get alcohol. You can't in the stadiums, you can't anywhere in Doha. So you can find a beer here if you really want to, and if you're willing to pay top dollar for it.
I was just giggling last hour when I said I think England could go all the way. You did the funniest face. You sort of blew your cheeks out. Well, I have to say that was my reaction when the Aussies thought they could beat France. Even I know that's highly unlikely. Anyway, Paul, lovely to see you. Thanks very much indeed for all of that. We'll see you in the next hour.
Cheers, mate.
Right, from one Paul to another. Let's bring in Paul Coit, who joins us for his analysis.
You know what? Stick with it. Why not? You know, if he's being cynical over there, old cynical Hawkins, you know, why not? Everybody is. There always is going to be a situation where we have a good win and then it's... We're going to win the World Cup. Yeah, OK, you know, as old Casey Kasem said, keep your feet on the ground and keep reaching for the stars, because you never know what is going to happen. I thought it was a terrific performance.
So do I. In spite of all the hoobery and everything that was going on, all the noise.
There was a lot of noise. And remember, we spoke about, and if we want to talk about the armband, and we spoke about that yesterday, and I said yesterday, the person I feel sorry for in the centre of this is Harry Kane, who's the England captain. And I think I've seen so much stuff on Twitter from both sides, but many people that are saying, well, they should absolutely take the yellow card, and they should actually say, OK, well, that's unlucky. If we'll take the yellow card and we'll get on with it. It's all very easy for people to be able to say, well, you should do this, you should do that. Can you imagine being the England captain and the most important player in the England side, and you're wearing the armband and you're told, OK, sorry, Harry, got to take this one for the team. We're going to give you a yellow card, get another one, and then you're suspended. It's ridiculous.
Now, I'm not saying that it affected Harry's performance. He did some great assists.
I think it was good.
But I did lose my bet about him getting a single shot on target.
OK, well, listen, don't you worry. Because Harry was playing a little deeper yesterday, and there's others that are concerned about the fact that he is playing deep. Now, as you mentioned earlier, there were other players that were scoring goals, which we haven't seen enough of. Harry provided two assists. You know, as Isabel knows, I'm never going to say a bad word about Harry Kane. I'll make that.
Harry.
I am absolutely Team Harry, so I'm never going to let that go. He's a fantastic captain. He's a team player. So don't you worry, those goals are going to come. So he'll score plenty of goals as well.
I've met Harry. I've interviewed Harry. He's a magnificent role model to young people as well, about his nutrition, his clean living lifestyle.
Do you love him like we do, then?
I do, and what he did yesterday, he took all those markers away and created room for the other guys to score. Magnanimous.
He is a fantastic footballer. And it was a very, very good performance. The other thing you're going to get, which probably Paul will say, but it's only Iran. But Iran is still top 20 in the world.
And they scored two. Disappointing to lap two in?
You know what? Not really, because I think, for example, the penalty, which was a nonsense. There's no way that should have been a penalty.
It was a travesty.
It was a travesty, because the thing is, if they're going to give penalties for pulling and situations like that, what happened to Harry Maguire early on in the game should have also have been a penalty as well. But you know what? I like the fact that Gareth Southgate has come out afterwards and said, you know what? I'm not happy. You know, we took our foot off the gas. That's what I don't want to see. You know, we want to see England playing expansive, exciting football, and that's what they did.
Yeah, well, Keith said nothing against Iran, but England beat the equivalent of probably a First Division side, and Iran also scored twice against England. Commentators and sports stars are acting like we've beaten Brazil or Germany. So obviously that's what Gareth Southgate...
I will argue back to those, to the goals. It wasn't goals in great goals in open play. It was you know, OK, one of them maybe, but the other one with the penalty.
Can we talk about Finley, who we just had the pleasure of interviewing just before 7 o'clock?
When I saw Jack Grealish do that, and I knew straight away what it was. And you know, it says a lot about Grealish. Finley, that was lovely. And it's just a fantastic story, isn't it? And that's something about the World Cup, and we love to see that. And indeed, it is the power of sport, and it is so important. And people think that, sport, and then we're seeing the bad side and everything that's going on in the World Cup, and arguments about this and arguments about armbands. When we see things like that, then it puts a smile on your face, and it shows what sport's all about.
Quick word, we must talk about Wales. Yes. The penalty, I thought, was sensational.
It was a penalty, Martin. It was a penalty.
He smashed it in the top corner 10 minutes ago. First World Cup goal in decades. He smashed it.
He did. I mean, it was a penalty. It was a true. I'm never going to use any cliches, but it was a game of two halves, to be honest with you, Martin. It was very much a game of two halves. Wales were not good in the first half.
They were poor.
And all I'm thinking is is the fact you got Ben Davies plays for Spurs. He was playing the Spurs way. You know, it's a very bad first half. Second half, so much better. Gareth Bale, and we do say it's their first goal since 1958. It's the first time they've played in the World Cup since 1958. So we'll give them a break. It's the first time since the days of our friends Cliff Jones. And a 1-1 draw against USA, that's OK.
And it's good for England too, though.
It is very good for England too.
Yeah.
So really, the England game is going to be huge for Wales because I expect Wales will put Iran away. I expect the USA to do the same, and then it's all about how they do against England.
And we talked about the Iranian anthem. Do you see the Welsh fans singing their anthem?
Yeah.
They were absolutely crying their eyes out.
Yeah, you know what? The Welsh can sing like nobody else.
It was brilliant.
They really
Are they all really great singers?
Yes.
We always have that. It's like, oh, the Welsh can sing. What, everybody?
Yes,
Can everybody
genuinely,
sing?
They're all Charlotte
Absolutely.
Church.
Yeah. And Harry Seacombe.
100%.
Yeah.
Tom Jones.
There you go.
There's
Any
so
more we
many
can
of
mention?
them.
Yeah. Manic Street Preachers. I'll make that sound a bit cool.
Yeah.
There you go.
I'm going to stop now. Paul Coyte, thank you so
Pleasure.
much. Pleasure as always. We'll have more from Paul a little bit later on in the programme.
Well, let's head over now to Treorchy in Wales now to get the fans' reaction to that late comeback draw against the USA. And our reporter Jeff Moody is live for us there this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
So tell us, tell us about the reaction. The pubs there, it looks amazing.
There's a lot of sore heads in Treorchy this morning, I can tell you that for nothing. There was a lot of beer consumed. They've waited 64 years for this. 64 years of not qualifying. Finally, they're qualifying. So everyone was out in force. The bars were packed, the beer was flowing. There was the Treorchy Male Voice Choir was there the day before, singing their anthems, singing their songs. A lot of singing happened last night, I can tell you that. First half, they began to think, why do they bother? Wales didn't play particularly well. It was a bit lacklustre. And as we went into half-time, a lot of people were saying, oh, well, we might stick to rugby. But that second half and that equaliser by Gareth Bale, that penalty, it might have been a penalty, but it was a good one. Let's have a look at the reaction when he shot it straight into the net. And then, of course, the beers flowed even more. And then when we got to the end, it was a draw. But you know what? One of them said to me, at half-time, I would have killed for a draw. So they were all extremely pleased to have a draw. Let's see what their reaction was afterwards.
Tense, everything you could expect from a first World Cup game for like 64 years. But yeah, I'd have liked us just played a little bit better in the first half. But you know, the nerves stayed in the end and we come through like so. It's good, yeah, it's good.
Absolutely worth the wait. I mean, they made us wait a little bit about the first 45 minutes, but I thought the second 45 minutes absolutely superb for a man. Rod Page's substitutions were great. It was well worth waiting 64 years for.
There, they did it, almost. They're playing Iran next. That'll be something to look forward to. It definitely is a game of two halves, isn't it? Cliche away.
Luckily. Yeah, good stuff, Jeff. Thank you very much indeed.
I always get concerned when they throw beers in there. I think it's cost of living crisis. Don't waste it.
Such a wild night out with Martin. Look, the time's 7:16. Let's bring you up to date with the rest of the top stories this hour. And cutting-edge research could double the survival rate of people with advanced cancer. That's all within a decade. World-leading experts say this will mean more people will get cured or live longer with the condition.
And hundreds of schools in England have been downgraded by Ofsted. The schools watchdog inspected more than 370 schools in the last academic year, with only 17% of them retaining their outstanding grade. Most of the schools were being inspected for the first time in over a decade due to an exemption from regular checks.
The energy regulator Ofgem's told 17 suppliers to improve their approach to their vulnerable customers. Ofgem's report shows severe weaknesses at 5 firms, including Good Energy, Outfox and So Energy.
Well, the Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, will today use a speech to say that the UK must wean itself off migrants' labour.
Yeah, speaking at the CBI conference, he'll say the days of low pay and cheap labour are over, and the focus should now instead be on training workers who are already in the country.
Well, it follows comments from the head of the CBI, Tony Danker, urging the Prime Minister to harness migration to promote economic growth.
Well, joining us now is former aide to the Chief Secretary to the Treasury, Leon Emirali, now regular on our show. Welcome back. Real hardening of the Labour leader's position here, and I suppose shrewd politicking, because he's spotted an opportunity.
He has indeed, and I think he's sort of tapping into this sentiment that Rishi Sunak is not like Boris Johnson. You know, he is going to be soft on immigration, and we know that immigration is still an important topic for voters. So I think it is shrewd politicking from Keir Starmer, and he's spotted that opportunity and he's run for it.
But will that be convincing to those people who are sort of sitting on the fence of whether to vote for the Conservatives, the sort of red wall voters, or those who are sort of traditional Labour voters in the past?
Well, there's not much now between Labour and Rishi Sunak. You know, gone are the days of Jeremy Corbyn and Boris Johnson. At the moment, Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer have got two parties that are pretty much slap bang in the middle of politics. So there are only a couple dividing lines between them. And immigration, if Labour can make that a dividing line, could very much be in their favour.
I totally agree with that. If you look at this high tax, there's increased NHS spending, we more or less have open borders, we have an omni-party. And so it is about creating cut-through, especially in the red wall. It was key in 2019, it will be key again. And this kind of simple messaging, it lands, doesn't it? Less migrant workers, 3 words, get Brexit done, take back control. It lands, it works.
It does indeed. And, you know, we should have more nuanced debates about politics. I firmly believe that. But it doesn't work like that. People have busy lives. People aren't following politics in the way perhaps that we are. You know, they might read the front page of the newspaper or see the bulletin, and what they want to see is simple messaging that they think, that makes sense to me. And I think if Labour can tap into that, all the Conservatives tap into that, they lead themselves into a positive position going into the general election.
They have to deal, the government has to deal with the issue of growth, and this is something that the CBI flagged yesterday, saying we need migrant workers to plug Labour shortfalls. This is something that the Chancellor, who's trying to balance the books, he's trying to pull us through a recession as quickly as he can, is mindful of. And yet his own minister yesterday on this programme seemingly appearing with Keir Starmer, to agree with Keir Starmer on this point, which is that we should be training British workers rather than importing.
Well, it's very, very complex, because I fear that the UK is going down the route of maybe Japan, of maybe Italy, where we've got an ageing population and we haven't got enough people in the workforce to actually deliver on that growth. Now, in an ideal world, yes, we'd have, you know, British workers doing those jobs, but that takes time to train them up to get the skills that we need to do that. And the short-term fix is to get in migrant workers to help that and boost immigration so we can get that growth and onto the long-term plan of growing the economy.
Maybe, being canny, maybe Starmer knows that the Tories can't control immigration coming in, so maybe he can just say this to look tough and blame it on the Tories when they can't control the borders yet again.
Well, he's always going to blame the Tories for everything. Yeah. That's his job. But, you know, I do think that this is one of those dividing lines. And again, if Labour can sort of make a wedge for this issue and essentially paint Conservatives as a party that can't be trusted on immigration, a party that's also leading the country to, you know, an economic downturn, well, that's a good formula for Labour to go in and say, well, we can fix it, guys.
Yeah, and we should point out we're speaking to Jonathan Ashworth from Labour a little bit later on in the programme. I just want to get your thoughts on the Justice Secretary, the Deputy Prime Minister, Dominic Raab. I'm sorry, I'm just being told it's Jonathan Reynolds. I'm sorry, I've given the wrong name of who we're interviewing a little bit later on. Dominic Raab's in hot water, isn't he? He's had 2 allegations of bullying already. He's on the front of The Guardian with a 3rd allegation, this time an expose by Pippa Crerar, who we know exposed Partygate and effectively, some could say, brought down Boris Johnson. And he's in front of the Justice Select Committee today. He's in hot water.
He is in hot water, and, you know, there is a fine line between what's essentially being a tough boss and being a bully. And I think that, you know, a lot of MPs are going to be sensing a bit of weakness in Dominic Raab's position here. And if you get 1 allegation, you can brush it off. 2 becomes difficult. 3, maybe more, then I think it's going to be very difficult for Dominic Raab to find a way out of this. And also, it detracts from the work that government is trying to do.
Did you ever witness any bullying on his behalf or hear whispers of it in your time in the Treasury, or talk amongst civil servants, or indeed, you know, any of your peers and other spads?
Well, I think there's certainly, you know, talk of MPs that are tough, and, you know, I think Dominic Raab falls into that category. But, you know, I've not heard the rumours of tomatoes being thrown around. I mean, I've not seen that.
journalists care about this sort of stuff. You know, select committees care about this sort of stuff. Do the voters care about this sort of tittle-tattle?
I think they should care about it because, you know, ultimately it comes down to who you are as a human being. You know, you should treat those colleagues around you with respect and decency. And I think that if the public decide that, you know, Dominic Raab isn't doing that, then maybe you question his integrity and his character.
And finally, as an advisor, former advisor in the Treasury, what do you make of this decision, unbelievable decision by the Independent Parliamentary Standards Authority to sanction MPs to expense their Christmas parties on the taxpayer when we're facing the highest tax burden in 70 years?
Incredibly tin-eared, isn't it? I mean, you know, we're looking at a very difficult economic situation for many households up and down the family, and yet here's MPs, free food, free decorations, go and enjoy yourselves. I don't think that strikes the tone that a lot of people are feeling up and down the country.
Well, why don't they squash it then? Why doesn't the government sort that out? They don't have to take this, do they, from the authority, the Independent Parliamentary Standards Authority?
Well, this is the problem, it's the independent authority, and you know, it's that independence that means that they essentially can just say, up to you, MPs, and now you can decide to submit your receipts and your expenses or you won't. But ultimately, they're the rules, and if they want to play by them, then they can.
Fascinating. Thank you. Leon Emirali, former aide to the Chief Secretary to the Treasury. Thanks very much.
Just completely out of touch, aren't they? They really, really are. Anyway, after the break, we'll meet two people who have turned the house sitting to tackle their cost of living crisis.
This is absolutely
great
fascinating. Don't go anywhere.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes & Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes & Kerr.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
I think I've seen probably quite enough of Matt Hancock to last me a lifetime.
I'll also be getting to know you better, travelling to find out what you think about the politicians who are fighting for your vote.
They've got to get this country back on track.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. only on GB News, on TV, radio and online.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Welcome back. It's 7:27. Still to come on the programme this morning. At 8:15, we'll be speaking to the former Liberal Democrat leader, Vince Cable, about what he makes of Sir Keir Starmer's hardening on his position, I suppose, on Brexit and indeed immigration.
And the King will meet South African President Cyril Ramaphosa today, hosting his first state visit as a monarch. At 8:45, Royal Editor Katie Nicholl will bring us all the details.
And as always, we love to hear your thoughts. Keep those emails coming in, gbviews@gbnews.uk. Before we get on to the next item, I just want to reflect some of the emails because they've been coming in thick and fast,
loads.
haven't they? Brian says Starmer is really becoming more Tory than the Tories these days. He's anti-low wage, cheap Labour rhetoric is nothing more than a cynical ploy to attract Labour voters back to the fold. It makes you wonder what other Tory policies he's going to adopt.
Yeah, and then Shane agrees with that. It's amazing this message is really landing. It's a simple message, less migrant workers. Shane says the general public will approve that Labour's Keir Starmer is saying all the right things. 15 years ago, a Tory leader would have been saying this with the same conviction and belief. Not this anymore. The Conservatives in their present form are finished.
Yeah, and lots of you sending your condolences to Eamonn as well, because just around an hour ago, we're paying tribute to his mum, Josie Holmes, mum of 5 Holmes boys, no less. It is her funeral this morning, Requiem Mass at 11:30, and we send you our love, Eamonn, if you're watching. And Margaret says, I'd like to extend my condolences to the Holmes family. They're in my thoughts today, and I'd also like to wish Eamonn a speedy recovery. He's been sorely missed, and I hope he is back soon on our screens.
Yeah, and Sam adds to that sentiment. Please pass on our thanks to Isabel for her update re Eamonn and for her kind words of support to him. Here's to Eamonn's swift return.
Yes.
Amen to that.
Absolutely. John saying, send my heartfelt sympathy. Ali saying, pass on my love and hugs. Anna, what a lovely tribute to Eamonn Holmes' redoubtable mother. And Wendy, good morning, Isabel and Martin, sending my very best to Eamonn. So, look, thank you so much for this. I know he'll really appreciate it. And I will actually send every single one on to him so he knows all of the thoughts that you're sending his way.
Yeah, lovely. OK, imagine being paid to live in stunning flats around the UK with a garden, all the TV subscriptions you can imagine, and a dog to walk on the daily.
It doesn't have to be a flat either. It can be a big sprawling mansion, whatever it is, because savvy savers are doing just this, and they're cutting their costs during this recent price hike by becoming full-time house sitters for families whilst they're out of the country.
Well, Megan and Sean are with a company called Trusted House Sitters, and they join us now to tell us more. Good morning to you both.
Morning.
Hello. Good morning. So whose house are you in today? I feel like Keith Lemon, who habitates in a house
Through
like
the keyhole.
this. Yeah. Tell us a bit about your latest residence and how you stumbled upon it.
Yeah, we're in a fantastic house in Southampton while the owners are away on holiday. What can we say? It's an amazing grounds. We've got 2 dogs, a cat, and some sheep and chickens to look after.
Like the good life. So tell us how it works. So you don't get paid to house sit, do you? But you carry on working as normal if you work remotely, for example, and you're able to save up. And how often are you moving around the place?
Yeah, so I think you can get paid for it, but we do it through a site called Trusted House Sitters, which is like Airbnb, but no money is exchanged. It's just based on trust. And yeah, we move from place to place every few weeks. You can do house sits for a couple of months at a time. And sometimes there are short stay ones as well.
So the owners presumably want somebody staying in their home whilst they're away, not only, I suppose, to keep it ticking over in terms of, not wanting frozen pipes and the like, but to keep intruders away, make sure there's a good deterrent, or looking after the animals, as you say. But what's in it for you?
Well, I mean, I suppose it's the story about how we got into it. We had a flat in London, which for all intents and purposes was a fantastic flat, and we loved living in London when we were there, but it got to a point where the cost of living in London didn't quite weigh up with the lifestyle. So we were really keen on a change up in lifestyle. We weren't able to have pets in London, and this has given us the opportunity to experience a different way of living in the UK, as well as be with animals, which has been absolutely fantastic.
Well, fair play to you for not giving up and moving around instead. But how difficult is it, living out of a suitcase and moving around the whole country every few weeks? Do you fall out when you're packing and things like that? Because I do.
Oh, yeah. We've had a couple of moments. It's definitely a challenge. It's not for everybody. It's something that we knew that we would have to get used to. It's definitely not the stable life, but we've made it work.
Yeah, it's not for the faint-hearted. Like, we've been living out of a suitcase since we left London in April. So yeah, around about then.
Keep going at this, and like how much do you want to save, and what's your goal?
To be honest, the goal is to do this until we feel like we are ready to settle down. And so there's savings that comes with that. There's experience that comes with that of different parts of the country, and really figuring out where we would like to put down our roots.
Oh, well, look, Megan and Sean, I definitely feel like you're very trustworthy people, and I'm sure I would trust you with the keys to my house. But is there a vetting process? I mean, trust is something you earn, don't you, over time when you know people already. To just let strangers in with all the beautiful belongings behind you, it's a bit of a risky business, isn't it?
It can be, yeah. We actually had someone ask us during the sort of interview process, isn't this a strange thing? I've never met you before, you've never met me, and we're just going to let you into to our home. So the site is set up such that both parties can apply in either direction, and the owner of the house can, speak to as many house sitters as they want until they find people that are, trustworthy and people that they'd like to let into their home. Often we meet up with the house sitter, the owners beforehand. A couple of days before, or just on the day, depending on where we are. So there's that process.
You also build up reviews over time. So, ratings, basically.
Similar to the Airbnb system. It makes a lot of sense. And I think a lot of people probably be inspired by your story this morning. If you want to be a savvy saver, it looks like a really good idea. Megan, Gay, Sean Wood, really lovely to talk to you, and enjoy your stay in Southampton and wherever you end up next.
Good luck. Cheers.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're going to take a quick break. After that, we'll be back with Michael Heaver and Stephanie Tecci taking us through the papers.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television and online, across England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
And it's about standards and public life. No, I'll tell you what's hypocrisy, Narinda.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin.
We believe in the UK.
No bias, no censorship.
It just doesn't make sense to me. He wasn't doing his job as Chancellor.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Every Friday and Sunday night from 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
We're on the same page again. There's something good happening.
Let Ian finish. Don't be such a cranky.
That mini budget was the tip of the iceberg.
And on Saturday, my show just got bigger. From 8, it's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In.
You can't govern a country if you can't speak.
Stop talking.
My God, we reached the end. I've never been early in my life. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing. You see, amazing.
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Welcome back at 7:38. You're watching and listening to GB News with Isabel, Webster and Martin Daubney. Let's take a look at your newspaper front pages.
And The Sun says, hooray Jude, as England wonder kid Jude Bellingham gets England off to their best ever World Cup flying start.
The Mirror calls England's victory pride and prejudice as the Three Lions light up Qatar following the controversy surrounding Harry Kane's One Love armband.
And The Guardian mentions the Iran squad. They say this was far more than a match as the players refused to sing their national anthem. And it's time to go through the newspapers now. And joining us this morning is former Brexit Party MEP, my good buddy, and founder and editor of Heaver News, Michael Heaver, and of course the ever glorious Stephanie Teshi. Good morning, both.
Good morning.
OK, Steph, let's kick off. Oh, the Albanian boat migrants. And is this somebody saying something about don't come to Britain?
Yeah, so for me, when I listen to migrant stories, we never hear of the actual human side stories and the actual journey they go to come to the UK. And what I love about this story, it's about an Albanian who wanted to be an economic migrant. He's 30, and he's trying to ward off migrants doing the similar journey he did on the dinghy, because he said that he faced unimaginable terror. He said on the boat, the people that he paid £3,500 to, they were armed with knives, guns, and he felt more threatened for his life. And he said he wanted to come here as a quick fix to make money for his father, his disabled father. But he says following that journey, it is not worth it, because he said the pain he experienced is more traumatising than actually trying to get into the country. And I just love stories like that, because I feel we need to hear the more human side of migrants. And I think that's actually what would help this crisis a bit, where people actually will be warded off making that journey.
So human traffickers are heartless so-and-so's, shocker.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Michael, what's your take on that?
Well, look, some very, very dangerous, bad people have been making huge amounts of money in terms of the gangs running these operations, in terms of getting people across the channel illegally on small boats. Ultimately, though, I fear this isn't actually going to stop until the government themselves implement a policy that makes it very clear there's no point paying these gangsters huge amounts of money to come across, because you will not be allowed to stay. And sadly, until the government actually implement that policy, I think we're going to see this scandal and crisis continue to worsen. And don't forget, this has been getting worse now, this situation, for a number of years. Over 40,000 people this year, over 28,000 people last year. This isn't something that's just suddenly happened, you know. This has got worse and worse and worse. And if the government don't stop the boats before the next election, I think it's going to cost them a lot of seats.
And look, certainly the Albanian question is something the government is very keen to get to grips with, because as you point out, Stephanie, these are economic migrants. These are not people seeking asylum that need to have asylum cases that are complicated and heard legally in the courts necessarily. These are people who, quite frankly, are trying to exploit the system and get in a way without going through an appropriate visa system. And they're looking at fast-tracking returns for those Albanians. But as you said, there is this repetitive mandate from the British electorate for years now that they want to get a grip of this problem.
Well, I think it's been a problem that they haven't managed to get a grip of. So that's why it's more effective to hear more of these human side stories, because then it's like all we hear is the end results, the migrants are coming and they're taking our resources. But actually, these are human lives and they're taking these journeys. And I think they would be put off once they hear the experiences they can go through on that dinghy.
Yeah, well, it could work as a way of deterring people if they realise the extent and the length of the dangers of some of these smugglers, as you say. So let's hope that message gets relayed to Albania. What was the percentage? Something like 2% of men of Albania...
all men of military age. A huge amount, and it's a terrible, terrible problem. Michael, let's move on to this next story. There's been this huge division within the Conservative Party since that announcement that they want a Swiss-style deal.
There was no announcement that they wanted a Swiss-style
Well, it's been all over the place. We've talked about it now for 2 days solid, and it is an issue.
Categorically, let's make sure we report it accurately, it has been categorically denied by Downing Street that there is any move from the UK government for a closer alignment towards Switzerland. And they know...
You believe
yes,
them?
because they know that this would be electoral suicide for them.
I agree with that.
And hugely toxic for the Conservative Party. It would end the Conservative Party. And I think
totally agree.
even probably Jeremy Hunt, who would like to see this happen privately and has probably said so privately, isn't that stupid?
So, Michael, there's a bit of a Rishi fight back on this, is there, today?
Yeah, well, this is why I picked out this on the page 2 of The Sun, is that this has been reported by The Sun as Rishi Sunak slapping down Jeremy Hunt. So, essentially, a Prime Minister disavowing comments or apparently coming from Jeremy Hunt or someone close to him. And I think the problem for the Conservatives is it creates this situation where it just looks chaotic yet again. Yeah. You've had Boris Johnson go, voters not asked. You've had Liz Truss go and put forward with Kwasi Kwarteng this tax-cutting budget. We've now got, obviously they've gone, we've now got a complete U-turn on that. And now you've got a situation where voters are going to look at it and think, what? So you've got now the PM slapping down comments on Brexit, reportedly from his Chancellor. Yeah. I mean, what is going on? And this is the big problem. This is the issue facing the Conservatives. That I think a lot of voters who backed them in 2019 will increasingly look at the government, look at the party and think, well, what do you actually stand for? Where do you actually stand? Because with different PMs and different Chancellors, it seems to be shifting month by month.
And dancing in from stage left is Keir Starmer. Now, there's been a few GB News viewers saying that I've gone Labour today. I can assure you there's nothing stronger in this than water. I have not gone Labour.
But that shows how canny this hardening of his position is from Labour, because he's filling this vacuum in terms of this approach to migration that has been created by some of the comments coming out of the government. Has this been reported in the papers this morning, or is this is actually what we're expecting to hear, isn't it, from Keir Starmer at the CBI conference later today? What do you make of that?
I think it's time that Keir Starmer actually stood for something properly, and because I feel like over the past few years he's been quite wishy-washy and he moves from one rhetoric to another rhetoric, and I just feel like say what you mean and make people have conviction in you. I think now's the perfect time for actually Keir Starmer to come out as a real leader, because the Conservatives, they've been weak so many times over the past few years, and I feel like he's always taken a back seat. So now is his time to actually shine and actually make himself look like a reliable candidate for number 10.
I mean, not saying anything for a while has been a very successful policy for him, hasn't it? Because, you know, he's just had to stand back and watch the fireworks within the Conservative Party. But as you say, now, stepping forward as a Prime Minister and waiting, certainly that's how he wants to present.
What's that old phrase about never interrupt your enemy when they're making mistakes? Yeah. Just let them get on with it. And that's what Starmer's just been doing, is letting the Tories hang themselves. Should we do a bit of showbiz?
Yes, let's talk about I'm a Celeb, Stephanie, in the Mirror.
Yeah, stories like this tend to get on my nerves as a black person, because I think, you know, we've got there was three campmates who were black, and Charlene White was the first one to go and Scarlett Douglas was the second one to go. And the media are just making this big hype saying, oh, there's this race row that's happened and I'm a celeb. There were real situations of racism in this country that never reached the newspapers. And you want to talk about a reality show starting a race row when it's not that. It's a reality show. People are judging it on who they're liking and who they're not liking. And to me, it's not about colouring about this. It's about a fan base. Scarlett Douglas, lovely woman. I think she done really well. But she hasn't got a big fan base such as Boy George or Sue Cleaver, who was on Carnation Street, who left yesterday. So stories like this, I just wish they stopped making it about race, because then when there is actually true situations of racism in this country, doesn't make the papers.
Well said, Steph. Well said.
Fair
Now,
enough.
Michael, you're going to put us back to Brexit again
Well,
here.
let's have a look at the House of Lords, shall we? This is
Yes.
the I, page 11. Needs reform,
good
but
one.
abolishing it may go too far.
Yeah.
Who's saying that?
Well, this is Paul Watt in the Eye, and this is another Labour suggestion that we heard over the weekend, which I actually think is a sensible suggestion, which
Same
is
here.
to abolish the unelected House of Lords, which I think at this point is completely discredited, hopelessly outdated.
This was another Sir Keir Starmer policy
Indeed.
that you guys both ardently agree with, just to point that out.
But this is the thing.
This was Brexit Party policy that Starmer's just nicked.
But you remember with Brexit, the Brexit agenda was about radical policy change, and if the Conservatives aren't careful, they're going to get left behind defending a status quo. You know, defending an unelected House of Lords, which I don't think has much public support. And I certainly think, you know, Labour making the argument to have an elected second chamber and for perhaps it to have a proportional voting system in there. As I said, the Tories have got to watch out on this, otherwise they're going to come across as actually people, rather than embracing that Brexiteer buccaneering spirit of change, actually just defending things that are outdated and unpopular.
I've got a big question on this, and that's who gets to vote for this second chamber? Is it the electorate, or is it the MPs themselves, so they just vote their chums in?
Oh, no, I think the suggestion is it would be voters, and that it would be a sort of the regions and nations. Obviously, that's all in the detail. But as I said, I think that's a sensible way forward. When you look at an unelected Lords, Martin, obviously, with comparisons to the EU, you've got unelected people with power. It's
I can't
ridiculous.
believe that me and you agree with Keir Starmer twice in one morning.
Politics is changing. Yeah. It is changing.
Stephanie, let's finish on The Guardian's Oxford Word of the Year.
Yeah.
This is also being democratised. It's not just the second chamber, but Oxford's Word of the Year. Tell us more.
It kind of shows how far we're actually moving from the Queen's English. So for the first time ever, the public will be able to vote what is the 2022 Word of the Year. And we've got things such as goblin mode, which is a slang term that refers to behaviour that is self-indulgent. And then we've got metaverse, which is virtual reality environment. And we've got hashtag I stand with, which is a hashtag used to express online.
Dictionary.
In a dictionary. So these are the three words which have
Hashtag
been...
should not be allowed anywhere near a dictionary.
No. Run that first one by me again.
Goblin mode.
Goblin mode.
Yeah.
OK. Unapologetic.
So these are like three terms which they feel reflect the ethos of 2022. But for me, it just feels like we are moving further and further away from the Queen's good English.
Jargon.
So voting closes on 2nd of December and it will be announced on the 5th of December.
Do you know what it is? It's not proper English, it's TikTok speak, isn't it? Yes, the kind of lingo that people are hashing out on their iPhones when they're at a bus stop or something, rather than when they're writing verses.
And this is what's connecting with young people.
Standards are slipping big time, aren't they?
I'm not OK with hashtags. Yeah, oh dear.
We're all getting old.
Is there a tick box for none of the above?
Yeah.
That would be where I'd put my vote on that. Stephanie Tetchy, Michael Heath, it's been entertaining.
Great
Thank
stuff.
you both very
Cheers.
much indeed.
OK, well, let's bring you up to date on the stories today. And Wales have ended their 64-year wait to score at the World Cup, drawing 1-1 with the USA in their first match after Gareth Bale secured the equaliser with a smashing penalty. And England won their opening match against Iran, winning 6-2 with goals by Bellingham, Saka, Sterling, Rashford and Grealish.
The Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, will warn business leaders that the days of low pay and cheap labour must end as he sets out his plans to end what he calls Britain's immigration dependency. Addressing the Confederation of British Industry Conference, Sir Keir Starmer will outline those proposals to invest in training up workers who are already here in Britain.
And for the first time ever, MPs can expense the cost of food and drinks for Christmas staff parties to the taxpayers. This does not include alcoholic beverages, but it does include the festive decoration for their office, according to the Daily Mail. MPs have been told their claims should represent value for money in this financial climate. Outrageous.
Now, in the lead up to Christmas, many of us are, of course, worried about that rising cost of living impacting on the price of Christmas food and, of course, the gifts that we want to buy for our loved ones.
Yeah, but at Belfast Christmas Market, traders are hoping people can still get into the spirit of the season, as Doug Beattie reports.
Sights and smells that signal Christmas is on its way. But even the councils are counting their pennies and hoping that the retailers are going to recover from the lockdown restrictions that kept revenue down. Over the next couple of weekends, Christmas tree lights will be lit across the UK. Here in Belfast, it was a very low-key ceremony in order to keep costs down. The 18th annual Christmas market is now well underway. It brings millions into the local economy, as it's one of only two on the island of Ireland. Traders here are hoping that the cost of living doesn't bite just so tight.
Oh, we love Belfast. It's amazing. It's the first time we've been here. We've never been to Belfast before. We've never traded here. The people are super friendly and the city is super clean.
Cheryl Rudman is a South African who is hoping that her culinary delights may catch on in the Belfast market.
Of course, the cost of living is getting so expensive. People sometimes feel that they might splash out a little bit more on smaller things, and just give themselves a bit of joy by walking around, having something different to eat, eating out, every third night or fourth night and popping down to the market, to see what it's about. We have something here called bunny chow, which is literally a loaf of bread, half a loaf, which scoop out the middle, the inside, and then we stuff it full of curry. That's in South Africa. There's a province, Durban, and that's mainly a Durban dish type of style.
Abdul Shafarnes has traded here for many years and says that they are keeping prices down and people are still buying.
Honestly, it's not affecting people. We're trying ourselves as well to not to put the prices up, even though this is handcrafted, but we're taking into consideration what's going on. We have to help each other.
The market is an attraction that brings footfall into Belfast, and the city will be anxious to keep shoppers there. But the rising energy costs have seen downscaling of lights throughout the area, and retailers are hopeful that the Christmas feeling doesn't dim. Dougie Beattie, GB News, Belfast.
Just reminiscing about good times had in Belfast, weren't you? You love it there.
That's right, yeah, my first child was conceived in Belfast. Sorry,
there you
too much information.
7:54.
Overshare.
What did you call your first child? Did you give it a Northern Irish name?
No, it wasn't Dougie. It was
Dougie?
Sonny.
Sonny,
Yeah, Sonny.
lovely.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say happy birthday, Sonny, but it's not his birthday. We digress. Look, we're going to be talking about much more important things, the celebrations, not only for England, but also for Wales. All things World Cup coming up your way after this break, and of course your forecast.
Hello, I'm Aidan McGivern from the Met Office. It's a cold start for many of us today, but there are further showers out there and there will continue to be some showers in places during the rest of the day. However, on the whole, it is a drier and brighter day compared with yesterday. There are more weather fronts on the way for the next few days, but actually today is a break in between weather systems for many, but not for all, because although for northern and northeast Scotland there will be some drier interludes, here we've got showers or longer spells of rain to come through the rest of the day. Likewise, some heavy downpours for the southwest, for Pembrokeshire first thing. These showers slowly easing into the afternoon. In between these two areas, for much of the UK, after a frosty start with some fog patches, sunny spells break out. And for Northern Ireland, for Western England, for Wales, Western Scotland, plenty of sunshine on offer. Temperatures at around 7 to 9 Celsius, perhaps 10 degrees in one or two spots. It's going to be windy though, especially for the Northern Isles, with Shetland seeing gales or severe gales returning by the end of the day. Elsewhere, with clear skies at first overnight, we'll see a fairly widespread frost, but by the end of the night, tomorrow morning, the next bout of wind and rain arrives in from the west and southwest, and that will lift the temperatures across Western England, Wales and Northern Ireland. After that wet and windy start, first thing, the rain quickly pushes northeastwards into eastern and northern England by mid-morning, Scotland as well, and then it becomes confined to central and northeast Scotland by the afternoon. Brighter skies follow for much of southern Scotland, England, Wales, Northern Ireland, but with a blustery breeze coming from the southwest, gales around exposed coasts and frequent lively showers, especially for Wales and the southwest. Same again on Thursday and Friday. We'll see further bouts of wind and rain replaced by sunny spells and blustery showers. We'll also see a general uptick in temperatures. Milder air is returning.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512,
Virgin Media Channel 604,
Freesat Channel 216,
Freeview Channel 236 and YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio,
with the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
On the Mark Stein Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Stein Show.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Monday to Thursday, 10 till 12, on TV, on radio and online.
Hello there, it's Eamonn Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB Plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Alastair Stewart, and I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alastair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. Now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me, noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
England secure their first World Cup victory in Qatar with a 6-2 win against Iran.
Well, good morning. It's 8 o'clock on Tuesday, the 22nd of November. This is Breakfast on GB News with Isabel, Webster and Martin Dordling. And here's what's leading the news this morning.
The Three Lions have secured their best ever World Cup start with a decisive victory against Iran. The win, of course, followed a controversial move by FIFA to stop the captain Harry Kane from wearing the One Love armband.
Meanwhile, Wales managed a late comeback to draw with the USA last night. Gareth Bale's superb penalty saw him score Wales' first goal at the World Cup since 1958.
In other news, the Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer will warn business leaders that the UK's immigration dependency must end. It comes as the CBI urges Rishi Sunak to harness migrant labour to promote growth.
And Dominic Raab will face a grilling from MPs today over accusations of bullying when he appears in front of the Justice Select Committee. It follows new reports that civil servants were forced to apologise on behalf of Raab for his inappropriate behaviour.
Do this.
You want to do this?
Yeah.
All right, I'll do that for you, all right? I promise.
Oh, and he's the 11-year-old football superfan who inspired Jack Grealish's armworm celebration, and we'll remind you what happened when we met the schoolboy everyone's talking about this morning, Finlay Fisher.
And that was so good. It really brought a tear to the eye. Anyway,
I'm not crying, you're crying.
Get in touch
We're all crying.
the usual way, via Twitter or email gbviews@gbnews.uk.
So our top story this morning, England's World Cup campaign got off to the perfect start, really, after their 6-2 victory against Iran.
Yeah, it was superb stuff as the Three Lions had 5 different goal scorers in the match, including Saka and Rashford, who redeemed their penalty shootout misses from last year's Euros finals.
Well, that victory came hours after a controversial decision by FIFA to stop players from wearing the rainbow One Love armband that promotes LGBTQ+ rights.
And Wales, meanwhile, ended their 64-year wait for a World Cup goal after Gareth Bale scored a late penalty, and it was a superb penalty to secure a 1-1 draw with the USA.
Well, let's head over to Qatar, where our reporter Paul Hawkins is waiting for us. Good morning again to you, Paul. Look, given all of the politics that was going on right up almost until the start of the match yesterday, England came out with a decisive win when, quite understandably, that pressure could have been too much for them.
That's a really good point, Isabel. Morning to you and Martin. That could have been a real distraction for them. They started the game quite tentatively, but as soon as that first goal went in, they kind of clicked into a rhythm, clicked into the gears, and then really Iran were no match for England yesterday. But yeah, they could have been distracted by those issues on the field, potentially, possibly. Maybe it affected Wales' performance later that evening. A much more nervy performance from Wales. They would have wanted to have put in a much better performance against the USA, although the USA know Iran. They do pose more of a challenge and will do so for England when we get to Friday. But yeah, great result for England. Really interesting journey for Bukayo Saka as well, given the way the Euro 2020 final finished when he missed that penalty. That he then had to go through receiving racist online abuse. But this season, he's been fantastic for Arsenal. He's one of the reasons why they're top of the Premier League, and he's continuing that great form heading into this tournament. So this is what England fans we spoke to who were at the Iran game yesterday, this is what they had to tell us last night.
Yeah, it was amazing, to be honest. Obviously 8 goals in total, 6 by England, and some of the goals were amazing. Saka's goal.
Somebody came to us
before
and
the game,
asked
someone asked about it.
if we noticed that Iran didn't sing their anthem.
Yeah, they did.
Because they were split in half, he had explained to us. Because people were speaking fast around us, and I said to him, what are they talking about? And he goes, they're all pretty upset because Iran split between whether they can, and they just wanted to sing the anthem.
No worries.
There were problems for some fans, or reports of some fans having problems with their ticketing app getting in the game. Was that you guys?
Yeah, actually,
it was you.
Originally we had a problem, and literally at the last minute, the ticket downloaded. But they were quite non-negotiable about the tickets.
I think the advice is get there extra early. So we got there like 2 hours
because
before.
the apps don't work very well.
Okay, very well. So you've got to allow for that extra time.
Correct.
There you go. So the fans are feeling really confident and optimistic. Probably fans of a certain generation, given the years of hurt, will be a little bit more cautious. But just to show you something, actually. Argentina are playing later today. They're one of the favourites to win the World Cup. Guys, I don't know how you're feeling. They're hot on merchandise here. This is for sale. And actually, if you look at the back here, if we just walk around into this gentleman's shop as well, you can see at the back here, there's a cabinet with the trophy. So either way, even if England aren't successful in the final, I can still literally bring it home for you if you're up for a World Cup trophy or anything else here. Maybe a nice lamp.
Top tip there. Actually, we had a bit of that yesterday in the studio, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. We had a World Cup trophy here. It's probably the closest that I'll ever get to.
Yeah, some
Paul,
World
bring
Cup
us one.
merch. Yeah, bring one home for us. That's a good idea. Stick that in your suitcase. Thanks, Paul. I think he's already gone.
He's back.
Well, that's OK, because we've got another Paul standing by for us. Paul Coit in the studio with us. Good morning to you.
You know what? I was looking at the cabinet there because I was looking very carefully to see what I could see. So if you out the front there were the cheap World Cups. They didn't look like World Cups.
Yeah.
And then behind the glass, that's where the good ones were. And the big ball, I think it was the Ballon d'Or trophy. I think you can buy a Ballon d'Or. So, you know, if Paul will sort us out, that'd be great. I'll have the whole lot.
Well, everyone says money talks, don't they?
Absolutely.
So there you go. Look, what's your assessment then of everything that happened yesterday? Because I think finally a bit of the politics is being put to bed and it's all focused on, rightly, the likes of Jude Bellingham, who just has become a household name overnight, hasn't he? I mean, if he wasn't already, people like me have now clocked him.
Well, look, Jude Bellingham, a little background on Jude Bellingham. He's 19 now, and so he's been around. He left Birmingham, so he's playing for Birmingham City. 17 years old, he leaves Birmingham and goes off to Borussia Dortmund in Germany, and everybody's saying that he's the wunderkind. He's this amazing young player. How good could he be? Well, Birmingham, they did something unprecedented, which is done in American sports. They retired the number on his shirt, which was 22. So it was actually retired. And people think, well, this is crazy. It's like a 17-year-old. But they truly believe how good this kid is. And Birmingham fans have been saying it for that long. And it's just proving to be the case. Not only is he a terrific footballer, and you know what? I'm hating the fact I'm saying this because I don't want to then put the curse on him because we've seen it from everybody from Dele Alli to Gaza and everybody saying this is the second coming, this is going to be the greatest English football of all time. But he is that good. He's got a very age head on young shoulders. He's a fantastic footballer.
And as for the World Cup being the best showroom on earth, his value must be going through the roof at the moment.
100 million, I read.
Yeah. It will be for a World Cup. But you know what? It's probably not far from 100 million anyway.
Astonishing.
Because of his age, because of his talent. And if he has a great World Cup, then every club in the world would want him. But he's a very sensible kid. You know, it's amazing we talk about England footballers being kids, but he is.
Yeah, they are.
You know, and he is a fantastic player. And, you know, and with him in the middle, with Declan Rice, they played in the midfield together, it just seemed to work. I know it's Iran. I know we're only one game in. I get very excited about any game of football, but I've got to
not any game of football, but I get overexcited. I've seen a glimpse of the trophy now. I'm now like, this is it.
Wait, is this the real one or the fake one?
No, the real one is coming home. I just decided.
But you know what? Why not? You know what? Enjoy the excitement. You know, in everything that's going on in the world at the moment, let's enjoy the football. Let's get behind the team and let's enjoy it.
Yeah.
And enjoy the football. And if we're winning, then let it continue.
Now, what about the armbands? Because obviously that's been put to bed, but they were wearing a sort of FIFA-approved armband instead.
Yeah, we talked about that yesterday. FIFA have now come up with a whole set of captain's armbands with a different message on. So whether it be for feeding the world or whether it be this, whether it be that, each one's got a different message. I wonder whether this has been invented by FIFA after the other rainbow armbands. I mean, I have heard rumours that were coming from Qatar earlier this morning that it wasn't just the problem that it could have been a yellow card for Harry Kane, that there could have been a ban that could have been given to him after the game had he worn that. And it's just something that, do you then want to put England and their chances in trouble when threats like this are coming out?
Yeah.
So
instead we have a kind of FIFA-approved virtue
we
signal.
have a FIFA-approved.
You were just talking about, you know, getting behind England and enjoying it all. Someone who really enjoyed it yesterday was young Finlay, who was lucky enough to talk to you this morning. The schoolboy of the toast of the nation. Let's have a little look at him when he met Jack Grealish before the World Cup and then how that all played out.
Yeah, I thought that he'd forget, but then obviously when I did it, I was cheering. I was so excited. I got it on record as well. He's my best friend, and also Callum Wilson for assisting Jack Grealish. He's also my other best friend. I think England are going to win the World Cup.
Yes, you are the man.
Every time that comes out.
And we should say that wasn't the point at which he met Jack before the World Cup. That was when we were chatting to him this morning. Hopefully we can show you that because it was such a sweet encounter between the two. Let's have a little look at that. Oh, apparently it's just a clip, so we can carry on talking. This is wonderful.
But Callum Wilson, I should mention that he mentioned Callum Wilson there, Finlay, and Callum Wilson had a great chance to score towards the end of the game. And what he did was laid the ball off then for Jack Grealish to score and just tap it in. And obviously then the celebration. I saw the celebration. I don't think the commentator had realised what it was. I'd seen it as well. And honestly, you do it quite beautifully there, Izzy, and that's what it was. But you know, you've got a huge game. Let's just think of Jack Grealish. You know, this is a huge game for him. You know, for him to break into the England side, there's been problems a year ago whether he was the right guy, and there were doubts around what Gareth Southgate thought about him. So it's a very important game for him. But to have the thought of mind after scoring a goal to think of Finlay says a lot about the player.
Well, I suppose he was thinking of Finlay, and I suppose also his sister. She also has cerebral palsy, and that was a tribute to both of them. And it was just so sweet speaking to him this morning.
Do it straight afterwards. He was just a marvellous.
What a hero. Lovely, lovely story. Look, we've got a treat now in store for all of our viewers and listeners, because Trevor Stephen joins us on the line. Absolutely fascinated to get your take on everything. Of course, having played in a World Cup yourself, been through all of this, been through all the pressure and expectation of a nation on your shoulders. What's it like watching everything unfold in Qatar? Your assessment so far?
I'm glad England have played the first match now, because I wasn't feeling the World Cup, I'll be honest with you. You know, so much discussion and conversation about everything other than football. And now that England have started, I've got the excitement. And of course, yesterday was a terrific start, a magnificent start, really. I know the opposition were not as strong as one of the top-rated countries in the world, but there's still apprehension going into the first game, and you just want it to go well and get 3 points, and England did that. But not only that, they've got half a dozen of their players who've contributed to the result, and that's excluding Harry Kane in many respects. He didn't find the net. But you've got Bellingham, Saka, Grealish, Rashford, and of course Sterling, and Callum Wilson's assist. All of these things are very, very positive. So we've got every right to feel buoyant this morning. And Gareth Southgate, though, did point out that we did concede 2 goals against a very mediocre Iran side. So we've got to look at that, obviously, and analyse it.
So Trevor, obviously a big downfall for England historically has been penalties. Now, you know all about that. You were on the park in Italia 90 when we famously and really heartbreakingly crashed out against the Germans. Is it true that you were due to take the 6th penalty after Chrissy Waddle blazed it over? And you also said that we could have beat that Argentinian squad. So if we'd have had a bit more Trevor Stephen in our lives, we could be World Cup in Italia 1990.
I wouldn't go that far, but I mean, I was due to take the next penalty. Way back in 1990 in Turin on that fateful evening, which could have gone either way. And I've always said I never actually really got the chance to be a hero or a villain, but I knew how I was feeling at that moment, which was pretty scared, I'll be honest with you. But it never came my way. Chrissy Waddle put the ball over the bar, and the rest was history, really. But to play in a World Cup for any player is the pinnacle, and I think we've seen it time and time again in the interviews that we've had with England players and all the players across the different nations. This is the biggest moment of their careers. It really is. It's one of those that you look back at and say, well, did I get to a World Cup? Did I get to 2? And I was lucky to get to 2. I know if I'd not have done that, I would have always felt there's a gap or a hole in my career. And these guys, these young men, are absolutely having the time of their lives. I know Qatar has been an unpopular destination for the World Cup, but they'll be very much focused on the football. And can they, as you said, bring the trophy home? Which, we're still up there. We're up there with the contenders for sure. I think yesterday's result gives us a little bit more spring in our step and a bit more belief, which is great. But some big teams to come yet.
Yeah. Trevor, listen, it's great to see you. And I've got to mention that it's USA, isn't it, that are coming up next. And if I remember correctly, I believe that Trevor Stephen scored against the USA in a big win. So firstly, can we beat them like we beat them when you were in the side? And also after the celebration of Jack Grealish, how did you celebrate there, Trev? Can you remember that?
Was it one of these?
No, it wasn't actually. No, my rhythm wouldn't stand that. I did score against the USA, which was way back in a long time ago in the Coliseum in Los Angeles, and we won 5-0. think Gary Lineker might have helped himself to a hat-trick on that particular afternoon. But again, this is a different time. It's a different challenge. The US have come on massively in their capacity as a footballing nation. It was a good side. I thought the Wales performance, very poor first half, couldn't handle the press from the American side, but turned it around, and credit to Rob Page for that. He, with a tactical change, bringing Kiefer Moore on, it did change the game, and obviously there was Gareth there to seal the draw at the end. But the US are not to be taken lightly. It's still a big challenge, for England. But we've got a lot to be pleased about going into this game. As long as no one's carrying injuries. We know we didn't have James Maddison, for instance, available for this game. That's a particular miss at this moment in time, building into the tournament. Let's see how that goes. But, I'm feeling good this morning. I'm feeling very World Cup-ish, and looking forward to the games that are to follow.
Stephen, you've whet our appetite for what is still to come. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us this morning. I'm sure you're very in demand with everything that's going on. Thank you.
Yeah, let's hope we can get a bit of that sort of Trevor Stephen magic. And if it comes to penalties, Paul, I mean, it's
I don't want you to mention. I was really disappointed that you brought that up. I mean, the thing is, we're past all that now. But now I've got that worry of World Cup penalties now at the back of my mind.
Sorry, OK.
We'll be all right. We'll be all right. Good stuff, Paul. Thank you so much.
OK, well, let's bring you up to date with all the rest of today's top stories. And energy regulator Ofcom has told 17 suppliers to improve their approach to their vulnerable customers. Ofgem's report shows severe weaknesses at 5 firms, including Good Energy, Outfox and So Energy.
Cutting-edge research could double the survival rate of people with advanced cancer within a decade. World-leading experts say this will mean more people will get cured or live longer with the condition.
And hundreds of schools in England have been downgraded by Ofsted. The school's watchdog inspected more than 370 schools in the last academic year, with only 17% of them retaining their outstanding grade. Most of the schools are being inspected for the first time in over a decade due to an exemption from regular checks.
Now, away from the World Cup and on to some politics for you this morning. The Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, is going to use his speech today to say that the UK must wean itself off migrant labour.
Well, speaking at the Confederation of British Industry, he'll say the days of low pay and cheap labour are over, and the focus should instead be on training workers who are already in the country.
Well, it follows comments from the head of the CBI, Tony Danker, urging the Prime Minister to harness migration to try and promote economic growth.
And let's speak now to Liberal Democrat, former Secretary of State for Business and author of How to Be a Politician, Sir Vince Cable, who is giving a talk at the upcoming Hay Festival Winter Weekend. Hi, Vince.
Morning.
Thanks for coming here. So, what do you make of Keir Starmer's position here? Because there's been a lot of talk today, and I count myself on this as an ardent Brexiteer. He's making all the right noises to woo voters around migrant labour. Is this a U-turn or is clever politics?
Well, I think it is clever politics. I think we've got to separate out, in terms of Brexit, all the trade issues and the migration issues. I mean, I think it's now generally accepted across the British political spectrum that we're not going to go back to unlimited migration within a single market framework. But at the same time, we're going to have a relationship with the European Union, which is what the CBI and others are saying. If you want us to invest in labour-saving equipment, we've got to have confidence, and to have confidence, we've got to have access to the European market. So on the one hand, the CBI and many other people are saying, let's get back into a trade relationship, what Jeremy Hunt was saying yesterday. On the other hand, as Starmer and others are saying, we just got to live with a world which will probably involve slower growth, but in which we have to emphasise operating without unrestricted, unskilled migration.
It just goes to show, doesn't it, what a difficult political climate there is at the moment for leaders of all of the parties. And I'm interested in the title of your book. It's called How to Be a Politician, 2,000 Years of Good and Bad Advice. Perhaps some of them will be listening to that. And, of course, you've got a great deal of experience, having been a business secretary in the coalition government as well. It's interesting because Labour is trying to position themselves as the position of the party of business. And yet here they are contradicting exactly what the CBI is calling for. And they have to try and weigh that up, don't they, to try and keep business on their side whilst also appealing to what we're all sort of calling now, obviously, the red wall voters.
Yeah, and it is a tricky balancing act. I think the key is around the word training. I mean, certainly when I was in government, we put a lot of emphasis on apprenticeships as a way of upgrading the British labour force. But the problem was the government then slapped on this apprenticeship levy, which is effectively a tax on training. It's ridiculous. Jeremy Hunt should have got rid of it in the budget, actually. But the whole way in which we deal with the training of people, upskilling the labour force, is very underdeveloped. And so that's a thing I would hope Mr. Starmer goes for.
So looking back at your book title here, 2,000 Years of Good and Bad Advice, I mean, it seems like they could do some good advice at the moment in the Conservative Party. What advice have you found in your research which they could learn from?
Well, what I was addressing in this book, and I start off with an opening line, is sort of an imaginary conversation with a teenage young person who expresses an interest in being a politician, to which my reaction is, really? You know, there's all this sort of popular cynicism, which was captured in the quotation of Billy Connolly, the Glasgow comedian. Anybody who expresses a wish to be a politician should be forbidden for ever becoming one. So, you know, there is a lack of trust. And I think the big challenge to all of us, regardless of party, is rebuilding the trust, which is being honest with the public about the scale of the challenges we have. And although there were things in the budget last week that I disagreed with, I think what was good about it, and where Hunt was right, was to spell it out rather brutally. You know, if you want good public services, we're going to have to pay our taxes for them. Something politicians have been reluctant to do in the past.
And talking about being honest with the public, the Deputy Prime Minister has been facing a number of allegations, hasn't he, in relation to bullying. He's in front of the Justice Committee today, and I don't know whether you take a view in all of this, but I think standards in public life matter, don't they? And I suppose if people are looking to a career in politics, you want to have good role models in those roles.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, I was an MP for 20 years. A lot of things were happening. They were all brushed under the carpet. And I think one of the steps forward in recent years is that we now have a sense that there are standards that have to be observed. And whatever people think about Boris Johnson politically, the fact that at the end of the day he had to go because he was disregarding standards was a big stepping stone.
That's interesting. So you don't think it's a new toxic culture of politics that's emerging, and hence these inquiries and people losing their jobs? You actually think it's just that we're actually getting better at policing it?
I think that's right. Yeah. I think there are a lot of things that used to happen, sexual harassment, quote, bullying. It happened, but it was swept under the carpet. It was just assumed the kind of thing you did and could get away with. But now it's been brought out in the open, and the media's got an important role in that.
Talk about bad advice, Vince. This story on the front of the Mail today, I wonder what your take is on this, and that is MPs will be able to expense for their Christmas parties in the current economic climate. Surely that's a bad thing to do.
Well, I haven't read the story, but it's a terrible headline.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the big disasters in British politics was, of course, the expenses scandal back in 2008-9. Buying duck ponds and charging the taxpayers for it, and Christmas parties sounds as if it falls in the same category. I thought that problem had been dealt with, actually, because there is now an independent system for evaluating expense claims, and the idea that MP could simply buy a house and charge the mortgage to the public, I mean, all that's gone. But there are probably little abuses slipping through the system, and I think in the interest of confidence, the authorities have got to be very tough about it.
Could I quickly ask you at the moment, everyone's talking about Labour, way out in front in the polls. Where are the Lib Dems at the moment, your party? They seem to be absent from the battlefield.
Well, in terms of national aggregates, average polling, that's certainly true. But I think the way the Lib Dems will come back is the way they came back in 1997, 2010, elsewhere, which is by concentrating resources on area where we're clearly the main challenger to the Tory party. In my old constituency, Twickenham, a safe Lib Dem seat. It started that way. We were the alternative to the Conservatives. We won the seat. And there will be between 20 and 30 that we could realistically capture at the next election and probably play a key role in the next parliament on the back of that. So it will be locally based rather than sort of national averages.
Do you miss frontline politics? I know that you're obviously writing about it still and indeed giving speeches this weekend at the Hay Festival winter weekend. But do you miss being in Parliament?
No, I'm glad I left, actually. I was still under 80, so still young enough to start a new career, which is what I'm doing, writing.
It's young in political terms these days. We look at Biden and Trump.
Yeah, exactly. Biden's talking about bidding for a new period of 4 years. I think it's a bit improbable, but... You know, the idea that people in their late 70s, early 80s are past it, I just don't buy that. And I do business, I do academic stuff, I write books, and that's a worthwhile career.
OK, Vince Cable, former business secretary and Liberal Democrat leader. Thank you very much indeed. And
Thank
author, no less. Thanks for coming in this morning.
Superb. Thanks for your time. Well, after the break, we'll be finding out why almost 500,000 British expats are protesting about their pensions.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes & Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes & Kerr.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
I think I've seen probably quite enough of Matt Hancock to last me a lifetime.
I'll also be getting to know you better, travelling to find out what you think about the politicians who are fighting for your vote.
They've got to get this country back on track.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. only on GB News, on TV, radio and online.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
And welcome back. It is 8:31. Still to come on today's programme.
At 8:45, ahead of the King's first state visit with the South African president, we'll speak to Vanity Fair royal editor Katie Nicholl, who has all the details.
And at 9:15, as a new drama about the Litvenko poisoning premieres, we'll speak to another man who's been on the Kremlin's hit list, Bill Browder.
And do keep your thoughts coming in. Lots of you with lots of views right across the spectrum on everything from the World Cup to Sir Keir Starmer. Janice saying Keir Starmer can say Labour need to stop immigration to fill jobs in the UK because he knows Labour human rights lawyers will do the opposite and therefore allow immigration to continue.
Yeah, there is some more cynicism here as well. Peter is saying Starmer will allow high immigration, both legal and channel crossers. His statements to CBI are a pure smokescreen. Do not be deceived.
Mark says, are we living in some weird parallel universe? Labour is becoming the Tories and vice versa. Time for proportional representation and some alternatives. I'm sure you're not alone in thinking that. Keep your thoughts coming in, GB News at gbnews.uk. You can tweet us at GB News.
Certainly got them, talk. Well, almost 500,000 British pensioners are trapped on frozen state pensions, as low as £22 per week, because of where they have chosen to live in the world.
Yes, a group of them are taking their grievance to Westminster today, highlighting what they say is a cruel system. Let's speak to our national reporter, Ellie Costello, who is there for us this morning. Ellie, it's what a small number of people, around 500,000.
Yes, exactly. Good morning, Isabel and Martin. And this is a small delegation today that is representing 500,000 people. They're protesting in Westminster today about pensions that are frozen in time. Now, if you've lived and worked in this country and you've paid your national insurance contributions, then you will expect a state pension. But what many people may not realise is if you then move to a country that doesn't have an uprating agreement with the UK, then your pension will never rise with inflation. So in real terms, what we've seen in the past few weeks is pensions here in the UK will rise by 10% to help with inflation. But if you are living in 150 countries around the world that doesn't have an uprating agreement, your pension will not rise in line with inflation. It is frozen in time. It does mean some pensioners around the world who have lived and worked in Britain are on as little as £25 a week. Well, we can speak now to John Duffy, who's chairman of the International Consortium of British Pensioners. Now, he lives in Antigua now. It's very nice for you, isn't it, John? But you're originally from Brighton. So tell us about this small delegation today and what you're here to do.
Well, there are 5 of us here who come from Canada, Australia, and myself from the Caribbean. And we actually are here to represent those frozen pensioners. We're not particularly here to represent ourselves, although we are people who do suffer from the same effect of having a reduced pension, because we think that it is discriminatory, it is grossly unfair. We have all paid the same amount of money into it, and we should be entitled to get the same amount back out again. But the government, and this has applied to all governments, continuously say that it's a policy that they have had for 70 years and they have no intention of changing it. Now, we could say that about slavery, homosexuality, hanging. That is not a good excuse. We are discriminated against, we have people suffering, we have people who are below the poverty line, all because the government is too mean to pay them the money that they are owed. Sorry.
And that's all right, John. And just very briefly, because we are running out of time, tell me about some of the discrepancies, because it does completely depend, doesn't it, geographically on where you are in the world, about how much you earn.
Yes, it does. I mean, the big countries are Australia and Canada, where they are the majority of frozen pensioners are. But if you lived over the border in the US, you'd get your pension paid. If you live in Europe, you'd get your pension uprated. If you live in the Philippines or Israel, but most of the Commonwealth countries are not. I mean, I live in Antigua, but Jamaica and Barbados, you get your pension uprated. And the whole thing is just totally unfair. Now, I have somebody in Antigua, she's a lady who worked in the UK. She was a Windrush emigre. She worked in the UK for 39 years. She gets a pension frozen now because she went back to Antigua to look after her dying mother. Her sister, who stayed in the UK, gets a full pension that's about double her frozen pension that she gets in Antigua. It's an absolutely crazy system.
And that's exactly what you want to highlight today. Well, John Duffy, really good to speak to you this morning. Thank you so much for your time. Others have flown specifically to Britain in a small delegation. They're going to hand a letter into the Department of Work and Pensions later to raise awareness of the situation and hopefully bring about change.
Good stuff, Ellie. Thanks very much indeed. And look, if perhaps you are one of those 500,000 people watching, because we have so many GB News viewers and listeners around the world that this affects, get in touch with us. We'd love to hear from you and what you hope this delegation will. You're actually all that hopeful or not in the current climate.
Yeah, fair point. Yeah, get in touch, please. Well, after the break, we'll be going through the newspapers with our good mates Steph and Michael.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
And it's about standards and public life. No, I'll tell you what's hypocrisy, Narinda.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin.
We believe in the UK.
No bias, no censorship.
It just doesn't make sense to me. He wasn't doing his job as Chancellor.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Every Friday and Sunday night from 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
We're on the same page again. There's something good happening.
Let Ian finish. Don't be such a cranky. That mini budget was the tip of the iceberg.
And on Saturday, my show just got bigger. From 8, it's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In.
You can't govern a country if you can't speak.
Stop talking.
My God, we reached the end. I've never been early in my life. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing. You see, amazing.
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here. You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
It's 8:41. You are watching and listening to GB News. I have to think about what I'm doing. Sorry, we've got quite the list of papers coming up, which has set me off course. But yeah, I'm Isabel, this is Martin, and we are joined to go through the papers today by Stephanie Tecci and Michael Heavey. But first of all, we're going to take a look at your newspaper front pages.
And The Sun says, hooray Jude, as England's wonder kid Jude Bellingham gets England off to their best ever World Cup start.
Is the Mirror, it calls England's victory pride and prejudice as the Three Lions light up Qatar following the controversy surrounding Harry Kane's One Love armband.
And The Guardian mentions the Iran squad. They say that this was much more than a match as the players refused to sing the country's national anthem.
So that was the front of the paper. So we're going to go inside some more of the obscure, entertaining stories or amazing stories this hour. Michael, you've chosen this inside The Sun as a Weight Watchers story, and they're talking about an all-you-can-eat buffet.
Yeah, I mean, this is quite cruel in a way. Apparently, slimmers attending Weight Watchers now meeting at Toby Carvery. I'm not quite sure what the logic is behind that. Maybe it's to really sort of test whether people are properly committed or not. I must say, not everybody's taste, but I am a big Toby Carvery fan.
I love a Toby Carvery.
I absolutely love a good carvery. I even like a low-cost carvery. There's no such thing as a bad carvery.
Yeah. Pile it high.
It's a bit too much for me, I
Lots
think.
of gravy.
Yeah, no, too much.
Like a pyramid of food.
Wouldn't say it's the healthiest, though, would you, if you're trying to lose weight?
No.
Well, maybe if you're just having the carvery, the meat, that's quite a good approach to trying to get, your fat down.
Yeah.
It's all about counting the calories,
and,
aren't
proteins
they?
and stuff, but I still think it's not going to help people who are trying to lose weight. It's like, can you imagine being there and just smelling all these whiffs of good food? It's like, by the end of that session, you'll just be like, forget it. Just bring on the food.
It's not Chinese water torture, it's Toby Carvery torture.
So, OK, it doesn't sound like that's a good idea. Something else that doesn't sound like is a good idea is giving kids alcohol, Steph. This is inside the Mail.
A little tipple doesn't hurt anybody, but according to this article, it's saying that parents need to stop giving their children wine. One psychologist has said that by doing this is introducing alcohol to kids at a very early age, which can be of their detriment when they're older and can eventually turn them into alcoholics. So he's saying that we should raise the age from 5 because it's legal for you in a private place to give your child a bit of wine, age 5. And he's saying that age 5 it's legal, just a little bit of wine, not a whole bottle. But he's saying that this age he's saying that this age should be raised up so that when they're much older they can have a better relationship with alcohol.
But isn't the whole point, and you look at the French model, which is where alcohol isn't a forbidden fruit, it's very much, accessible around the family table. They don't drink it to excess, but they have little bits and often, and they never have the same kind of drinking culture that we have. And certainly that's the kind of drinking that my family had as I was growing up. And we were watching the fireworks a couple of weeks ago, and it was really cold, and we'd just come back from abroad, so we were quite shocked by the cold weather. And I ordered a mulled wine or just a warm wine, and my son was like, "Can I have some?" And I just wanted to shut him up. So I was like, "OK, try it." And he was like, "Ugh!" He didn't like it, but I didn't hesitate to let him taste it. And I think it's healthy to, to let them sample.
Well, this is what this article is saying, is that we have to demystify that the French are elegant drinkers, because he's saying, according to stats from the World Health Organization, actually they have a greater alcohol consumption than the Brits, and we're the ones that are usually known as the lagerheads.
That's interesting, because I think the research now is showing that younger people now, actually the amount that are going out and boozing heavily has actually gone down, much like those people sat in front of computers all the time now instead of going out and exercising. Actually, I think that whole booze culture is actually on the decline with a lot of young people now.
The interesting thing about this, so I used to go to France when I was a young kid, and my auntie and uncle gave me wine, and I obviously never got a taste for it. I'm a walking advert for sensible drinking, aren't I, Michael?
First time I've ever heard that one.
It's not wine, just beer for you. All right, well, let us know your thoughts at home. Do you think that we should keep it, well away from it? I think in the States they go so far the other way, don't they? That no one's allowed to touch alcohol until 21. They all end up hooked on marijuana.
Makes them rebel as well. And I think sometimes it's good. Like, I think everyone probably on here can remember that time where you got ridiculously drunk, and then it just puts you off drinking. I think when you with your son tasting it, it's just like it puts you off, and that taste just stays in your mouth, and you just don't want to do it anymore to excess.
OK, so Michael, we're moving on to NASA. So tell us about the space capsule.
Yeah, really interesting. So this is the NASA's Orion space capsule, first to reach the moon since Apollo. And what's really interesting about this is the first time a capsule has visited the moon since the NASA Apollo program about 50 years ago. And I always thought it was odd, actually, that you've had such a large gap when obviously so much technologically has changed in that time. I guess it's just the relatively prohibitive cost of putting such a programme together. But it is astonishing to think this is the first time this has happened in 50 years. As I said, given the advances in technology we've seen, I don't know, even over the last 15 years, let alone 50 years.
And do you fancy living on the moon at some point? Because that's one of the suggestions in the future. It could be an option.
I think there's some people that would certainly like to send me there. I don't know. I do like cheese, if that helps. I don't know.
It's not like in Wallace and Gromit.
Oh, sadly not.
OK, so with Christmas approaching, we can look forward to a good old-fashioned strike.
Just when you think rail passengers, we've been through so much this year. The economy's taken about a £600 million hit due to these strikes, and there's more set to come. So with one union set to announce further strikes today, talks between bosses have failed. Over the past 14 days, they've failed to reach agreement, and, you know, the RMT have just managed to secure a fresh 6-month mandate of strikes. And it's just like, it's quite doom and gloom, especially during Christmas, a time where you really want to get away, go see families, and to think that they're hitting passengers where it hurt, it's not on anymore.
Well, I hope it's just brinksmanship and they'll kind of pull a deal out of the fire as usual. Michael, we've got time for one very quick one, because we've had all the food groups here. The final story, iPads for children are worse than cocaine?
Well, this is a suggestion, Sarah Beanie talking about iPads and technology of young people. I mean, I think this is a bit OTT, but I think there's a serious point here that, you know, I'm certainly happier now the less I'm on social media, the less time I spend on my phone. You get that up that pops up now and says you've been on it an average 3, 4, 5, 6 hours a day. And I certainly do think there is something to be said in terms of young people growing up with that as a norm. I think that can become highly addictive behaviour and actually quite hard to break that as you get older.
I mean, Sarah Beanie, she's obviously a well-known property presenter. Channel 4, I think, has been her home tradition. She's got four boys, I think, or 4 kids anyway, so she's got a lot of experience of this. Interesting in the context of this week hearing from the Children's Commissioner talking about the role of the internet and mobile phones as well this week, and saying that really, if you want to stay in touch with your children for safety reasons, just get a brick. Because actually what these kids are seeing on the internet, a whole bunch of 15-year-olds had seen beheadings just as a standard, really shocking content out there. And Sarah Beanie pointing to the fact that iPads are just used in the classroom now, not actually for teaching, but for things like Minecraft, when they could be learning. I have to say, I feel quite puritanical about it all, and I'd love to see the back of screens. Let youngsters be youngsters and grow up without the pressures of social media and all of this, the screen addiction.
I do get scared we're raising this generation of iPad zombie kids who are just going to be constantly hooked onto the screens and missing interpersonal skills, which are so key and just good for your mental health as well. And it's, you know, you can't really police the internet.
Superb. Well, a veritable buffet of stories
there
today. Thank you, Michael Eva, Stephanie Tachi. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again soon, we hope.
Thank you.
Cheers.
It's coming up to 10 to 9. Let's bring you up to date on the latest headlines this hour. And, of course, we are talking all things World Cup this morning. Wales ended their 64-year wait to score at the World Cup, drawing 1-1 with USA. You can see how that went down. That was their first match. Gareth Bale scoring the equaliser from the penalty spot. And England also having a cracking start to the tournament. Their opening match against Iran, where they won 6-2 with goals scored by Bellingham, Saka, Sterling, Rashford and Grealish.
And the Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, will warn business leaders that the days of low pay and cheap labour must end, as he sets out his plans to end what he calls Britain's immigration dependency. Addressing the Confederation of British Industry Conference, Sir Keir Starmer will outline proposals to invest in training up workers who are already here.
And for the first time ever, MPs can now expense the cost of food and drinks for their Christmas staff parties, all at the benefit of, or the expense of the taxpayer. This doesn't include alcohol, but it does include festive decorations for their office. This is the lead story for the Daily Mail today. MPs have been told their claims should represent value for money due to the financial climate. Now, King Charles will welcome President Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa to London today for his first state visit as monarch.
And here to give us all the details is Vanity Fair royal editor and author Katie Nicholl. Good morning, Nicholl. So what do you think we can expect from this visit, the first state visit for Charles?
The first state visit for King Charles, the first state visit for us as a country in 3 years. Can you believe we haven't had one because of the pandemic? So I think it's going to feel quite special, actually. And I think any state visit, you know, if you're in London, you're aware of it because you will see the traffic come to a standstill. If you're lucky, you will see a procession. There's going to be 2 guards of honour. I was actually down at the barracks last weekend and watching the all of the horses get ready for this parade. So it's going to be very much the pomp and pageantry that you would expect of a state visit. But of course, it's not just about the horses and the guard of honour and the state banquet, which will be the highlight of this visit. You know, this is very important for Britain and trade relations. We trade heavily with South Africa. It's the biggest country in the continent that we trade with. It's £11 billion a year for us. So there's a really important part to this. It's not just about the toasts and the tiaras. There's more to it.
Yeah, the soft power of the royals that can't be underestimated. But I think, you know, it's been 3 years, as you say, since the last state visit. I don't know who made the last state visit, but will it be a little bit tinged with sadness? Of course, all focus very much should be on the King. It's his first state banquet to host as King. We're going to miss Her Majesty tonight, aren't we?
I know, and I think we've talked about this, haven't we? You know, whether it was Remembrance Sunday, we'll talk about it, I'm sure, when it comes to Christmas Day broadcast. It is just this acceptance that the role of monarch is now being carried out by King Charles. And of course, we're so used to seeing the Queen carry out these state visits, to be there at Buckingham Palace, to receive that visiting head of state, whoever it might be. And she's just been such a sort of ubiquitous and expected part of that ceremonies that it is going to feel different. It's going to look different. We've got a king and a queen consort, but I think it's going to feel very special. And I think also, you know, let's watch these events closely. Let's see who's going to be at this state banquet. We're going to have William and Kate, the Prince and Princess of Wales. They're going to be actually greeting the President before the Guard of Honour later on today. So they're going to have quite a high-profile role. That's going to be important. We're going to see the Princess Royal. We're going to see Sophie and Edward. So we're seeing the extended family sort of brought out and placed on this world stage alongside the King and Queen consort.
And I wonder if, because there's a World Cup on, we could take on a bit of take the England game in. Now, don't forget the game is on Friday.
I'm sure there will be talk of the England success yesterday and hopes for today. You know, I think the thing with these state visits wouldn't surprise me at all if football is discussed, because it is an opportunity, as Isabel was saying, to sort of exercise this soft power. It's not straight to business. There's a lot of schmoozing that goes on as well, and that's very, very important for these important international relations. And also, I think it's worth mentioning that with King Charles now as head of the Commonwealth, that relationship with South Africa is really, really important.
Katie, I really want to get your views whilst we've got you on this Ripple of Hope Award that Harry and Meghan have been nominated for. This is by the niece of JFK, and they've been praised for calling out structural racism in the monarchy. This will infuriate the Prince and Princess of Wales, who are due to travel to the States
just days earlier. Well, they're travelling 4 days earlier to Boston for the Earthshot Award, which is, as you say, hugely important for William. This is his legacy. So the idea that 4 days later you're going to have the Sussexes accepting a Ripple of Hope Award for taking on alleged institutionalised racism. Which
have never been substantiated. She's never said...
Which have never been substantiated. The best thing they could do is not accept that award, in my opinion.
But do you think they will accept it?
Oh, I'm 100% sure they will accept it. And I think that that is going to cause all sorts of problems, and to take the shine off the Earthshot just a few days later. And I think there are a lot of people, a lot of commentators out there saying, really, this is only going to inflame an already sensitive and precarious situation. So actually, if they graciously passed on that award, I think they'd go up in a lot of people's opinions. Because really, what have they done? I think is the big question. Most people are asking.
I always thought Meghan was proof that there wasn't structural racism. We totally embraced her into the royal family. The wedding was a huge event. There was not even a hint that people were thinking about skin colour. And yet here she is.
King Charles gave her away himself.
Denigrating the family all the time. And I wonder if most people just wish she'd just go away and let the King Charles... Get on with his job.
Well, I think that's the problem. They're not going to go away. And while they're receiving high-profile awards like this or paying tribute to Sir Elton John in a high-profile video, it's very clear. I think one thing we can be sure, they're not going anywhere.
OK, Katie, thanks for your input today.
Thank you very much. We're going to take a break. After that, we'll be speaking to the Labour Party. This is as Sir Keir Starmer has called for the UK to wean itself off migrant labour. Significant shift in his position. All of that after the break.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236. And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
On the Mark Stein Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Stein Show.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even some ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Monday to Thursday, 10 till 12, on TV, on radio and online.
Hello there, it's Eamonn Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB Plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Alastair Stewart, and I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alastair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. Now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me, noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
England secure their first World Cup victory with a 6-2 win against Iran.
Good morning, it's 9 o'clock. It's Tuesday, the 22nd of November. You're watching and listening to Breakfast on GB News with Isabel Webster and very happy Martin Dorney. Here's what's leading the news this morning.
Yeah, the Three Lions, as we said, have secured their best ever World Cup start with a decisive, magnanimous victory against Iran. The win followed a controversial move by FIFA to stop captain Harry Kane from wearing the One Love armband.
Meanwhile, Wales managed a late comeback to draw with the USA last night. Gareth Bale's late heroics saw him score Wales's first World Cup goal since 1958. Thank goodness for that.
Superb penalty. And later today, Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer will warn business leaders that the UK's immigration dependency must end. It comes as the CBI urges Rishi Sunak to harness migrant labour to promote growth.
Dominic Raab is to face a grilling from MPs today over accusations of bullying when he appears in front of the Justice Select Committee. It follows new reports that civil servants were forced to apologise on behalf of him for inappropriate behaviour.
And as we await the release of the ITV drama Litvichenko, starring David Tennant, we'll speak to author Bill Browder, who was banned from entering Russia and experienced life on Putin's so-called banned list.
And we would love to hear from you in the last half hour of the programme. Do get in touch, Twitter or email gbviews@gbnews.uk.
And England's World Cup campaign got off to the perfect start after their 6-2 victory against Iran.
Yeah, the Three Lions had 5 different goal scorers in the match, including Saka, Rashford, who both redeemed their penalty shootout misses from last year's Euros final.
And their victory came just hours after a controversial decision by FIFA to stop players from wearing the rainbow One Love armband that promotes LGBTQ rights.
Wales, meanwhile, ended their 64-year wait for a World Cup goal after Gareth Bale scored a late penalty to secure a 1-1 draw with the United States.
Well, let's head over now to Qatar, where our reporter Paul Hawkins is waiting for us. Paul, you're in a trophy shop earlier on trying to snag your own World Cup. What's the mood on the ground?
Yeah, mood on the ground is, if you're an England fan, jubilant. Frankly, speaking to some Wales fans this morning, also feeling quite jubilant because they scored a goal, they came away without defeat. But don't take it from me, let's speak to the fans themselves. Guys, thanks for speaking to us. First of all, how did you find the game last night, the England-Iran game?
I think it was good, yeah. Yeah, we played well. Conceded 2 goals towards the end, but I think it wasn't that important. But I think that overall the team played really well. We've got 3 points, another win to the next round. It's looking pretty good. Yeah.
Were you surprised by how many goals they scored and the way they ended up playing, even if they started tentatively?
I think it's a game that was going to be our game that we're going to win. But it depends, how you win it. And I think they win it with a bit of class because they put their foot down first half, got the few goals that they needed, and at the end, Iran scored a couple of goals, but I think if it was a tight match they wouldn't have scored. So it was a confident start, and I think they'll do well.
Do you guys have any problem with tickets getting in? Because some people
no, not at all. No. I've heard some rumours here and there. I've read a few lines online and stuff, but do you know what? It's absolutely rubbish. No, it's very smooth, really. I mean, I couldn't ask for anything better than the services that we're getting. Even the transportation, entrance to the stadium was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. No issues whatsoever at all. No, not at all. And the most important thing, I have not actually witnessed not one single incident. I've been here I think I've been here from the 18th. Till now, not even one single incident.
Very safe, you're saying. Let's get some Welsh reactions. Speak to, is it Nicholas? Morning. How are you feeling? How was it? It was a late one for you guys.
Yeah, it was a late night. Game of 2 halves. We were worried at half-time and then changed a couple of players. And Gareth Bale came good and we live for another day. We just got to support England now against the US. Which,
you're supporting England against the US?
We'll have to, I think.
You need them to get a result to help you through?
It won't come naturally, but we'll have to, yeah. And then if we can get a win, and then it's all head-to-head with England and Wales on Tuesday. So, yeah, all good.
And you enjoying your time out here?
Yeah, I've only been here a couple of days, but yeah, it's fine, all good. All good, yeah.
Great stuff. Excellent. Thanks for speaking to us. Really appreciate it. There you go, England and Welsh fans mingling and congregating. It's an interesting group. And today, in fact, we've got 4 games. So first up, it's Argentina against Saudi Arabia. Then we've got Denmark, Tunisia, Mexico, Poland. And then finally tonight, France against Australia. France, one of the favourites to win it, although they have got injury problems. So some interesting games to watch today, especially, it doesn't sound like it on paper, but Mexico, Poland, quite a match up there. So we're expecting goals in that one.
Getting some flags there around you. I'm not sure which countries they were. I'm not so hot on that flag, but anyway.
Tunisia.
Tunisia. Thank you. Thanks, Paul. See you again.
See you, mate.
Now, the Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, will today use a speech to say that the UK must wean itself off migrant labour.
Yeah, speaking at the Confederation of British Industry, he will say the days of low pay and cheap labour are over, and the focus instead should be on training workers who are already in the country.
Well, this follows comments from the head of the CBI, Tony Danker, who urged the Prime Minister to try and harness migration to promote economic growth.
And we can also welcome the Shadow Energy and Climate Change Minister, Jonathan Reynolds. Now, good morning, Jonathan.
Good morning. Just I'm the Shadow Business Secretary, not Climate Change, but it's great to be with you.
Yeah, well, climate change, you're obviously big on that. We'll come to that in a moment. If we could first start with the comments that are dominating extraordinarily the front page of the Daily Telegraph today. Keir Starmer saying we must wean ourselves off cheap migrant labour. This is something that you'd expect from the Tory party. It's a very Brexity message.
Well, no, I think it's about what will work for the country. So let's be clear. Skills and labour shortages are the number one issue that businesses raise with me. And there are some real problems, particularly in terms of how quickly visas get issued, how things like the shortage occupation list works, which is when there are particular needs in the country. And we're saying to business, look, we're pragmatic, we'll fix those for you. But what we expect in return for that is if you do want to bring additional workers to the country, you've got to match alongside that a clear plan for investment in skills and training, in pay and conditions, or an investment in new technologies like industrial robotics, which mean that immigration will always play some role in our economy. We should be proud of people wanting to come to the UK and make that contribution. But it's not the sole means of addressing those skills and labour shortages. Now, I think that's a better offer to businesses overall, but I think it's a better set of policies for the country, one that will command more public support and a much better plan for the country in aggregate.
But it's interesting. I mean, Labour is trying to position itself, isn't it, as the party of business. It's trying to sort out a lot of the problems that the country faces and offer lots of hope for those businesses that are struggling at the moment. And yet what you're saying goes in stark contrast to what the CBI said yesterday at this conference. And actually they say not just, migration, as you say, will play a part in all of this. They say we need to increase migration. Otherwise, we will face a dormant economic decade. How do you plan to solve that?
Well, look, that challenge, turning around the 12 years of poor economic growth is absolutely central. But what we're saying to business is, look, we hear your complaints. We understand about those skills and labour shortages. But if you want us to fix these problems for you, you've got to understand that commands public support, that there's got to be, if you want that short-term fix of bringing in, for instance, people, one is, for instance, technicians who work in manufacturing under the shortage occupation list. OK, if we do that, alongside that, the long-term plan has to be corresponding with that, investment in skills and training or new technology or in pay and conditions. And so it will address those business needs and they're right to raise those with us. But this is the better way to do it. And on the overall figures, immigration to the country is not low. It's historically quite high. We've had net immigration to the country, I think, every year since 1994. So we're not saying immigration isn't going to play a role. We'll listen to that. But this is a more sustainable way of doing it over the long term. It will meet those business needs, but it will meet what the public expect of how the system should work. And I think that is a system which, frankly, everybody in the country will have some kind of support for.
Isn't this posturing, though, or politicking? At the moment, we have chaos within the Tory ranks around Brexit. Now, Rishi Sunak is kind of imploding the party, leaked memos to Sunday Times. We've talked about them for days now. And suddenly Keir Starmer comes in with a much more red wall-friendly message. Is this genuine? Is it just politicking? And how will it actually divide the Labour Party? Many people within your ranks are very, very pro-immigration, even open borders.
Look, I think you can be pro-immigration. You can welcome the fantastic contribution to the national story immigration has had and will always have, whilst recognising it can't be the sole means by which you address those skills and labour shortages which are evident in a lot of the economy. So I don't think the two things are contradictory. And honestly, I don't think it's politicking to try and fix the problems the country has in terms of that low level of growth, low level of productivity growth, that I think is at the heart of most of the problems in the economy, but actually the country as a whole. And look, the reason we are talking about this is for nothing other than the fact that if you do want to turn around that poor story on the economy of the last decade and a bit, you can't do it without working with business. It's not messaging, it's not politics to want to do that. It's a simple reflection of, I think, what is genuinely required to be the kind of government that we seek to be. And I don't think this is aimed at any one part of the country. Look, I represent a part of the country where concerns about immigration are often raised with me. And this is how people put it. They're welcoming to people who come to the country and make that contribution. They just want to know whether it's, for instance, in healthcare or IT, which are both sectors which do rely on a lot of foreign-born workers coming to the UK. Alongside that, there'll be opportunities for people in this country to work in those sectors. There'll be a focus on making sure people who perhaps haven't got the right kind of healthcare, haven't got the right needs in order to get back into the economy, that's being addressed as well. It's a comprehensive package to those labour and skills shortages. I just think that's the right policy. It's pragmatic, but it meets the needs of the country and what people expect of how the system should work, frankly.
Yeah, and look, you're trying to appear as the party of economic competence, and that's become clear in recent weeks, certainly. But for Sir Keir Starmer to come out and say that the days when low pay and cheap labour are part of the British way on growth must end, at a time when the Governor of the Bank of England is saying people shouldn't be asking for pay rises, at a time when we're seeing record inflation in this country, is that responsible from Sir Keir Starmer?
Yes, it is responsible, because a immigration system that works both for the needs of businesses and the economy and commands widespread public support is in all of our interests to do that. I mean, there are clearly problems right now with inflation and with particularly the cost of energy that has come from the Russian invasion of Ukraine. But the fact is, this is about more than the last year or the last 12 weeks of chaos which we experienced when Liz Truss was briefly Prime Minister. The fact is the last 12 years have seen such a poor level of economic growth that, you know, it doesn't deliver the living standards, the public services that the British people expect. And if we're going to resolve these, we've got to talk about issues like immigration. We've got to get the balance right. And I think what Keir has put forward today in his speech to the CBI is the right kind of balance. It is not saying immigration won't play a role in our economy, but it's just simply saying it's not the sole means of meeting those particular problems in terms of the labour market. And I think that is a comprehensive policy that delivers what this country needs.
Well, certainly, Jonathan, this is a world away from the days of Corbynism. This sort of thing would never have been anywhere near the lips of a Labour leader. It sounds more Nigel Farage than Jeremy Corbyn. Is this Blairism? Is this saying what you need to say to get elected, to get rid of that kind of the ghost of the left of Labour?
No, look, this is about what are the challenges this country faces and what are the right policies to meet those. Keir always says himself he never wants to see comparisons to figures from the past. I mean, the political system in the 90s, the climate in the country was different to how it is now as it was in the 70s before that and the 60s before that. The fact is you've got to focus, if you're any kind of politician in any kind of political party, on what are the challenges today, what are the right mix of things. You've got businesses saying, look, we've got real problems getting the right people, getting anyone in to fill these vacancies. Now we're saying we're listening to you, we understand that, but this is what we need. If we're going to work in partnership with you to give you the short-term relief you need, this is the longer-term system we need to see alongside that. And of course, as well as that, we need to see a much greater focus on particularly on the people who are languishing on NHS waiting lists, who want to get back to work, who can't at the minute. That's part of the story too. But I think this is the kind of sensible, pragmatic policy that delivers for all parts of the country. It's not about appealing to one set of people over another. It's the right policies for the economy, for businesses, but the one that will command public support as well.
OK, Jonathan Reynolds, thank you for your time this morning. Thank you.
Thanks so much, guys.
OK, time now to find out what is coming up on Bev Turner at 10 o'clock, right here on GB News. Bev.
Good morning, guys. Yeah, we're going to be dissecting what Chris Starmer does say this morning and Just before 10 o'clock, we'll be having a good look at that. It's also the COVID inquiry at the moment that Baroness Hallett is in charge of. We're going to be talking to Molly Kingsley from Us for Them to see whether the needs of children are sufficiently represented in that inquiry. I've got a great panel. I've got Tonya Buxton. I've got Lembit Opik, who's going to have a good go at trying to defend Matt Hancock being in the jungle. Good luck doing that with me, Lembit. And we've also got Maya Tuzi, who's a political YouTuber, Iranian, of course, and I want to know what he thought about the Iranian team yesterday at the World Cup not singing the national anthem. So we've got a huge amount to get through. Don't go anywhere.
Thanks, Bev. Sounds good. Looking forward to that. Stay tuned that way. Don't go anywhere. In fact, we've got a little bit more still to come on our programme this morning. We're going to be speaking to a man who was targeted by the Kremlin himself, Bill Browder. He's been on this show before. And this is all because a new TV show is serialising the poisoning of Litvinenko. And there's a screening of that tonight. So we're going to delve into that story after this quick break.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes & Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes & Kerr.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
I think I've seen probably quite enough of Matt Hancock to last me a lifetime.
I'll also be getting to know you better, travelling to find out what you think about the politicians who are fighting for your vote.
They've got to get this country back on track.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. only on GB News, on TV, radio and online.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Now, the actor David Tennant returns to our screens next month for a new ITV drama based on one of the most complex and dangerous investigations in the history of the Metropolitan Police.
He stars as Alexander Litvinenko, the former Russian Federal Security Services and KGB officer who died from polonium-210 poisoning in November 2006.
Well, the miniseries is screening tonight at the Royal Television Society, and we have a little sneak preview for you.
I need to report a murder.
Whose murder?
Mine.
He's saying that he's been poisoned.
Polonium. It's an isotope. In my opinion, there's no conceivable way that he can survive.
We want it as a joint inquiry. No, I'm a lucky man. I'm not sure luck is the word.
He wants the whole world to know what has happened.
I explained to you my story before it is too late.
Well, one man who knows what it's like to be on Putin's hit list after exposing corruption in Russian state-owned companies is author and head of the Global Magnitsky Justice Campaign, Bill Browder, who's been on the programme with us before. We're delighted to welcome you back. Thanks for coming in. Look, I suppose seeing the whole story of Litvinenko once again, I suppose we don't necessarily need reminding given what's going on in Ukraine, but it's a chilling reminder, isn't it, of just what kind of man Putin is.
Yeah, and if you think about this, this murder took place with radioactive material in central London in 2006. Okay, so here we are, 15 or 17 years later, and we didn't wise up back then. It was pretty obvious that if Putin is ready to conduct a nuclear assassination in London, we should have gotten a lot tougher, a lot quicker, and we didn't. And I think to a certain extent, what we see right now in Ukraine is the result of our inaction over the last 17 years.
Yeah, I mean, basically he felt as though he could act with impunity. It happened with Sergei Skripal as well to an extent. And I know that obviously in your own experience of having been, I suppose, top of his hit list with 8 Interpol red notices against you, Putin really, he could have done the same to you.
He could have. And his plan for me was to arrest me, get me back to Russia, torture me in his own prison, and then kill me after that. He wanted to torture me to get a false confession before killing me. And so the polonium thing wasn't quite in his plans, but he's been after me for a very long time, and he's been after a lot of people. And we're just starting to wake up to that the guy is a cold-blooded murderer who's ready to, he's a psychopath. He's basically got no conscience, no empathy, and he will kill thousands, millions, whatever he's got to do to achieve his own goals.
So with the all eyes on Ukraine, and is Putin no longer looking to foreign shores for people he can bump off, or is he still very much a global risk?
No, Putin never forgives and never forgets. He's a small, vindictive man. Anyone who's ever wronged him, betrayed him, disrespected him is on his hit list. And he's sending his soldiers into Ukraine, and his assassins continue to scour the world going after their targets and their enemies.
So I suppose with that in mind, you will forever be looking over your shoulder, but you're undeterred. You've gone around the world as a human rights activist now. And in fact, you were the first person in 35 years to get the Americans to even sanction the Russians, which, I mean, just such an enormous achievement. And of course, look where we are now with significant sanctions across the board. I don't know how many countries as well have adopted the Magnitsky Act.
Yeah, so we have this Magnitsky Act. After my lawyer, Sergei Magnitsky, was murdered, we came up with this idea to freeze the assets and ban the visas, not of the whole country, but just to the guys who are doing the terrible stuff, all the murderers and torturers, et cetera. The United States passed the Magnitsky Act in 2012, and there are now 35 countries around the world that have the Magnitsky Act.
Amazing.
And this was the template, which is now being used on thousands and thousands of Russians, including these oligarchs whose yachts and planes and villas are being frozen around the world.
And has that worked? Has it crushed his war machine? I mean, are we seeing the dying days of the Kremlin under Putin?
Well, the thing about, no, it hasn't worked. We haven't seen the dying days of Putin. Sanctions can either be a deterrent or they can be a punishment. If we had used sanctions after polonium, Litvinenko 2006, and after the Georgian invasion, or after the Crimean invasion, or after Salisbury, after a million different things, it might have been a deterrent for what he's doing right now. Now it's a punishment. And the only way the punishment is going to work is if we completely dry up his financial resources so he can't pay for this war. And we're not anywhere near there yet. we've frozen a lot of money, but we haven't frozen. He's still getting $1 billion a day selling oil and gas to the West, and he's spending $1 billion a day killing Ukrainians.
And here in London, of course, special significance. Obviously, this murder was conducted here, but also London continues to be the kind of money laundering capital of the world for Russian assets. What more should the British government be doing about this?
Well, the first thing the British government could be doing about this is to prosecute a Russian money launderer. In the 22 years since Vladimir Putin has taken power, there has not been a single prosecution of Russian money laundering. And estimates range from $250 billion to $1 trillion have been laundered through this country, and not one prosecution. And so if this country really wants to clean up its act, I mean, this country should be on the blacklist for money laundering. It should be considered worse than some of the worst Caribbean countries when it comes to money laundering, and there's not been a single prosecution.
So why do you think that Britain continues to turn a blind eye then?
It's either incompetence, political motivation, or corruption, or some combination of the three.
When it comes to Litvinenko, I know you're in touch with his widow, Marina Litvinenko. In fact, she was at your awards in London last week, the Magnitsky Awards. In fact, the winner of that was Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe, going through so many topics there. But just in terms of Litvinenko and the serialisation on ITV, will you be able to watch that, or is that too close to your experiences and sort of trauma, really, for you?
No, I'm not one of these PTSD type people. I watch, I learn, I think. I will absolutely watch it, and I'll watch every single thing about Putin in Russia that comes out, because sometimes you glean an insight which helps with the campaign.
Yeah, and finally, with Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe winning your Magnitsky Award last week here in London, she is a British Iranian who suffered terribly at the hands of the Iranians. England playing Iran yesterday in the World Cup, and the leaders there, the footballers there, not singing the national anthem. Your thoughts on that, finally?
Well, Iran is at the breaking point. These guys who do these oppressive regimes, these totalitarian regimes, they can't do them forever. They all eventually crack. And it looked there was a moment, I can't remember exactly, like 10 years ago, where it looked like it was going to crack, and they were able to turn the screws and get everyone back under control. But it doesn't look like that's going to happen now. And it's very hard to say, but it's good to see that people rising up in all different places, sports in the country, around the world, opposing this barbarous regime.
Incredibly brave and absolutely fascinating to talk to you. As always, Bill Browder, thank you very much indeed for coming in today.
Thank you.
We will be back from 6 o'clock tomorrow morning, but coming up next, Tom Harwood has the briefing for you.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB+ radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere. Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
And it's about standards and public life. No, I'll tell you what's hypocrisy, Narendra.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin.
We believe in the UK.
No bias, no censorship.
It just doesn't make sense to me. He wasn't doing his job as Chancellor.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Every Friday and Sunday night from 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
We're on the same page again. There's something weird happening.
Let Ian finish. Don't be such a cranky.
That mini budget was the tip of the iceberg.
And on Saturday, my show just got bigger. From 8, it's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In.
You can't govern a country if you can't speak.
Stop.